Hey, film friends, I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film. And you've probably guessed by now, we're doing something a little bit different this week. Instead of our typical review, I brought along three of my best amigos, my best film buds who know more than I ever hope to know about film. So let's start by introducing them. I got my best friend since I was 10. That's Scott Sipling, somewhere on your screen. And then two of my great friends from one from college, one I've acquired in the last couple of years. They're from the home of Denis Villeneuve from Canada. That's Adam Klein and Jason Tripp.
Hey, hey.
Tripp and Kliner for me. And I'm gonna send this over to Kliner because he has got the lists. He's the magical list keeper this week, and he's gonna kind of guide us through all of our lists and honorable mentions. So take it away, Kleiner.
All right. Yes, we're all prepared with our top tens and 5 honorable mentions. And
Yeah.
we're gonna just cycle through. We're gonna start north. We're gonna go to Tripp, and then we're gonna go to Scott. Then we're gonna go to me. Then we're gonna go back to Furman on Film, and we're just gonna rotate through there. Our honorable mentions will all as a collection. We'll mention 15 through 11 as our honorables, and we'll fly through those. Absolutely, we won't waste time. And then we'll go one by one, 10 through 1. And yeah, anything else we need to cover? All the Furman on Film fans are ready to go?
We're ready.
Okay.
Let's
All right.
do it.
Okay, so we are going to go through our honorable mentions, but one also caveat is just that for some of us, we have some more than others. We have films that are unique to ourselves, unique to our list, and so we'll have the floor and have the chance to shine the light on some unique ones. But there's a whole host of films on our lists that, as it comes around, we know that it'll come up later on the list. So we'll just say the title and pass the ball as we prepare for a larger discussion as we get to the top of the rankings. But feel free, guys, as we go around, if on your list it's blue, which is unique to you, feel free to take an extra few seconds to highlight those. But we're gonna start with our honorable mentions without any flaws here, just unique takes all over to
Definitely not our third.
the great north of Sudbury. So Tripp, take it away.
All right, little brain freeze. We're pretty far north, but here we go. Here are my honorable mentions. The first 3 are unique to my list. All of these films of my honorable mentions are from great directors, not quite reaching their apex, but doing some great work. For some, the first time in a long time doing great work. So 15, I got the movie Priscilla from Sofia Coppola. This is a relatively tiny budget, tiny biopic through the eyes, not of Elvis, but primarily Priscilla Presley. She squeezes a lot out of very little budget and space and production design in this film. And I thought it was quite compelling. The performances are fantastic by both the leads. I liked it a lot more than the Elvis picture from Baz Luhrmann last year. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. Priscilla, some of Coppola's best work that she's done since Lost in Translation. Number 14. Speaking of a great director, that's been a little hit or miss for me. Wes Anderson. I'm not the biggest Wes Anderson fan, but I loved Asteroid City. It's top 3 Wes for me. I was enthralled by this one so many ways, not only visually, but just the youth of narrative and the many meta-narrative layers in this film. It really is a poetic meditation on the meaning of life, grief, loss, and the grandiosity and incomprehensibility of the cosmos. And so it's worth checking out. It's one I look forward to revisiting. 13, speaking of great masters, Paul Schrader. He's known more for his writing than his directing. He does both in this film called The Master Gardener. It's the conclusion of his Lonely Man in a Room trilogy, first Reformed. The Card Counter started that trilogy off. This is a little more gentle, redemptive brushstrokes than typical for Schrader. It's like a fable, talks about a story about a white supremacist hitman turned master gardener whose troubled past comes to the surface when he's tasked with mentoring his employer's grandniece. Joel Edgerton has never been better in this film. Check it out, Master Gardener. So those are the 3 that are unique to my list. And number 12 will be mentioned again. The great Michael Mann is back, baby. Ferrari is my number 12. We'll talk more about that one a little later. And number 11, yeah, I'm bending the rules a bit. I got a tie. But you know what? This was the phenomenon of 2023, and these movies are forever fused together now. Nuclear fission on these movies would be disastrous. So I got Barbenheimer, Barbie and Oppenheimer at my number 11. We'll talk about both a a little bit later on. Those are my honorable mentions.
What I love about that's a great list of honorable mentions, Trip. What I love is that usually when we break the rules and sneak ties, they share some sort of theme, right? This is that, and no
come
movies
on.
could be more opposite.
I mean, they're
These
forever
movies
gonna
will be
talked about.
forever fused together.
I know
Come
that
on.
is very true. I know that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Once again, it's Tripp's annual tradition to break the rules and have a tie. So there we go.
It's like at this point, it's kind of like his whole gimmick, and I enjoy it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's a shtick. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
By
I'll
the way,
never
I
not
did that
be
in
annoyed.
3 minutes. 3 minutes for my honorable mentions.
That was good. That was
Hey,
good.
3 minutes.
All right, over to
Mine's
Trip.
Mine's gonna be like
over
90
to Scott.
Hello, everyone. My honorable mentions, almost all are going to be talked about later. So what I would like to say first is that can we make movies easier to find in the world now? And can we release them normally? And why
Yeah.
are so many 2023 movies being released in February and March of 2024? That's my mini rant to start off. It's just very difficult to figure out where and how to watch movies these days.
Here,
And
here,
it's
here, here.
frustrating.
You live in Philly. You have a film festival. Go see them.
No, I mean, yes, I totally agree with you. I should go see movies in person, but we're making movies so accessible that they're inaccessible now because they're like on one streaming service out of 100. Anyway, my honorable mentions are number 15 is a small indie thriller that I really enjoyed. It's called How to Build a Pipeline. It's a story about eco-terrorists. And you also get like large chunks of their backstory as well throughout the movie. It was intense, like a lot of great young actors. I really enjoyed it.
Did you call it How to Build a Pipeline?
I'm sorry, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. It's the opposite.
It's a slightly different film.
That's awesome. You did write that. You wrote that.
I did write that. Anyway, number 14 is Ferrari. Someone's already mentioned it and it will be talked about again later. Number 13 for me was The Holdovers. Again, we will talk about that movie later. Number 12 is Barbie. One already mentioned once and will be mentioned again. And my number 11 is probably going to upset these guys because of where I have it and how low it is. It's Anatomy of a Fall. But we will talk about it later.
Awesome.
Okay.
Excellent.
And, we'll be going over to Kliner next for his honorable mentions.
Yes. Thank you, Scott. And then hello, everyone.
How to build a pipeline.
How to build. Let's build a pipeline, everybody.
How to build a podcast.
It's an Alaskan documentary.
All right. My honorable mentions. My 15, 14, 13 are unique to me. And I'm incredibly proud for actually, I will confess that for a really long time, they were in my top 10. I was really fighting for them to stay in my top 10. But they all stand out uniquely because my number 15 is the best documentary of the year. Still a Michael J. Fox movie. Highly, highly recommend it. Deeply moving and also should have been Oscar nominated for editing because it's genius. Best documentary still. Number 14, the best comedy of 2023, Bottoms. Bottoms is side-splitting, hilarious, and ingenious. Have any of you guys seen Bottoms?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh my word, it's so freaking good.
Never got to.
Marshawn Lynch should have been Oscar nominated. Like it's
Yes.
just so amazing. Incredible.
Yes.
Best comedy of 2023, Bottoms. Totally absurdist though. It's not for everybody. My number 13 is the best horror film of 2023. Talk to Me. Deeply profound, moving, and brilliantly paced and cut. Love Talk to Me. Terrifying. As a parent, it's basically all my greatest fears as a parent. Just brilliant film. Talk to Me. Best horror of the film. And then I'm going to share something with you, Scott, because it may be slightly embarrassing where these ones rank, but we'll talk about them later. My number 12 is Oppenheimer. That's going to come up a lot later. And my number 11 is tied with Scott, is also Anatomy of the Fall, which I'll just say was the best screenplay of the year. And I just hands down, that's what I know. But we'll talk more about Anatomy of the Fall later. And so I'll hand it over to Furman for his bottom 5.
7 words, he says. 7 words.
Yeah,
7 words.
7 words.
That's pretty good, honestly.
Okay.
I thought you questioned it.
All right. I've got 3 blues of these 5. So including my 15, 14, and 11. So, okay. First, 15, So look, it's not very often that you get to hear the phrase Sundance Grand Jury Prize winner and criminally underrated in the same sentence. And yet that, like, I think the great mystery is what the hell happened to 1001 this year? Because Titanic performance by Teyana Taylor,
Yep.
great directorial debut about a lower class black mother and son just trying to make it in a rapidly gentrifying New York City. It's a terrific watch, and so that's my 15. 14, unique to me as well. I've variously compared this film to Before Sunrise, the visuals of Amelie, the greatest meet cute ever in a public art bathroom or art installation in the bathroom. It just uses all these fish-eyed lenses to tell this story of this couple in South London just trying to get over their exes. That's Rye Lane. Rye Lane, just freaking
Good flick.
terrific.
Good flick.
Yeah. 13, this one's going to come up again, so I will just say it's maybe the craziest 3-hour odyssey I've ever seen about a man who's just trying to get to his mother, and that is Beau is Afraid. So yeah, that's 13. 12, the greatest blend of gastronomy and romance I've maybe ever seen. Food porn in the very best sense. And that's
Chef's
Tron on
kiss.
Hung's The Taste of Things, which
Maybe that
actually
released like 7 days ago.
7 minutes
Like,
ago.
yeah.
What are you
I'm
waiting
very
for?
I have a lot to say about that at 12. I know it's going to be higher on someone else's list, and so I'm excited to talk about it. And number 11 is baffling to me. I am talking to avowed Fincher fans, and I'm the only one that had The Killer. The
It
only
was
one.
16 for me.
Uh,
I knew someone
16
else
through
would
20.
have it.
16 through 20 for me.
Yeah.
16
Yeah,
to
it's
20.
hard.
Okay. This is
Wow.
proof that a
Kliner didn't
master.
have that.
I
I'm
know.
shocked.
I think this movie is hysterical. A guy,
it
a
is.
cracked hitman who's becoming an increasingly unreliable narrator as he listens to the Smiths. It's just freaking
I think it's
hysterical.
great. I think it's a little bit of
And,
recency
that's the
bias.
best elevator pitch right there. You just had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So much fun.
great cameo, little scene with Tilda Swinton, just a couple of little things here and there. Just proof that, not something that's not quite top shelf from a master is pretty damn good. So that's The Killer. That's
My
11.
dilemma was Priscilla versus The Killer. I'm glad it got mentioned. So great. Awesome. Good list.
Okay, back to Trip. We've moved beyond our honorable mentions, and we've already mentioned a whole bunch of films that will be discussed at greater length later. But we did cover quite a few unique ones, which is great. And we're going to pass it over to Trip for his number 10, which, shocker, guys, is unique to him. So
Yeah, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm totally feeding into Scott's rant, and I get it. I live in a small town, but I'm
you're
fortunate
the problem,
to have,
Trip.
I'm fortunate to have a really kick-ass film festival here. So props to Cinefest Festival, where I've seen multiple films on this list. This one hasn't even released widely, and normally I wouldn't discuss a film that hasn't released, but in a dark year for film, a great year for film, but a lot of dark films, this is the most, I'm taking a word out of your playbook, Kliner, whimsical film I've seen this year. It's also my favorite animated film of the year. This was my first screening at my local festival. This brought me greater joy than anything when the Oscar nominees were announced. I stood up and cheered when this got a surprise nomination. It's a beautiful little film called Robot Dreams, and it's simply a whimsical tale of friendship between a dog and a robot set beautifully in 1980s New York City. I haven't even been to New York City, guys. I've never been there.
What?
And I felt so at home watching this film. And for some reason, I felt they've captured the spirit of the 80s in New York in this film, this beautiful 2D animation where all the characters are animals in the city, and this dog's just sitting at home on his couch watching TV one night, and an ad comes on the screen, buy this robot. So he goes, orders this robot, and they become best pals, and they wander all over New York. It's just a hangout movie. They're hanging out, they're going all over these iconic places. And then there is a tragedy that happens. I won't spoil it. And they're disconnected for a season. And we see a series of dreams the robot is having. So you're trying to figure out what's dream and what's reality. Are they going to get reunited? And it's just, I was grinning the whole time in my screening watching this. It took me back to my childhood. This is the one film on my list that I recommend to families, kids of all ages, begging my indie cinema to give it a run. It's Robot Dreams. It's a neon film, so that should say something. If it's A24 or neon, get after it. This is a Neon picked this up, which says something. It is nominated. It's based on a graphic novel by Sarah Verone, and it's called Robot Dreams. I don't want to say too much more about it. Check it out when you're able to. Bring the family to this one, grab some popcorn, and you will love it.
Awesome. Great
Sounds good.
pick there, Tripp. We're gonna move over to Scott, and I want to play a game because Scott's number 10 is unique to him.
Let's go.
Furman, do you have any guesses as your best friend's number 10 that's unique to his list?
Unique to me.
Oh shoot.
He's only seen
wow.
10 movies.
Come on,
Wait,
Furman
wait.
on film.
One of
Come
the 15
through.
movies I've seen this year.
Okay, wait. So it's unique to his list. It's number 10. And
Yeah.
should I know it? Okay.
I mean, maybe not, but like, it'd be impressive if you did.
You should tee me. You should have teed me up. Is it
I
is
know.
it obvious? Big or small?
I don't
All
know.
right, Scott, give it away. What is it?
All right, my number 10 is a Japanese film called Godzilla -1,
Oh, sick.
Nice.
which is like maybe the most fun I've had at a movie this year. Like, I think it's easy in this era of like big budget superhero movies and like monster movies and action movies. It's just they all have a tendency to be a little bit distant to me, a little bit they feel like commercial almost. They feel like we're trying to get people to watch this. And I think there's something really refreshing about watching a like medium budget like monster movie that feels deeply felt at the same
Yeah.
time. Like it's not just something to get people to be like, oh, look at that cool explosion or look at that cool monster. It is a really moving story about family and found family and like supporting our communities and like coming together to fight evil. And like it's just it. And then on top of it, there's a big lizard blowing fire and stomping people to death. It's also that. So I think it was like just an extremely entertaining movie. It kind of like came out of nowhere to be a box office sensation too. Like
Yeah.
there was a stretch of time over the summer that people were talking about this movie. And is it a better movie than Anatomy of a Fall? No, but I think it's a type of movie that deserves to be seen by a wide audience, and also is proof that we don't have to make like movies that are popular don't have to be bad. Like
Yeah.
action
Yeah.
movies, like big entertainment movies don't have to be bad, which is basically what Marvel's been doing lately, just making bad movies and being like, you'll see them. But anyway, that's my little Marvel. I fit in a Marvel rant.
It's great,
So-
and
It's good.
I
Great
think
film.
we're all hoping that it actually wins the Oscar for best visual
Visual
effects.
effects.
A team of
If I
30
were running the
people,
Oscars, it would.
30
Yeah.
people
Hey, Furman.
doing that. And not that Scott, not that you and I need to get into our annual argument, but you can say that Godzilla -1 is better than Anatomy of Fall because they're different movies, and Godzilla is not trying to be Anatomy of the Fall, and they're
Right,
both
yeah.
hugely successful at what they're trying to achieve, right? Anyways, that's my soapbox that I like to
16 to
So-
20 for me as well. But yeah, I'm glad it got mentioned.
Movie
So
rules.
here's why.
Did you see this
so
one,
here's
Nick?
why-
Did you get to this one?
No,
No,
that's
right.
what I was just about to say. Here's the
Oh.
one. This is the one film I didn't get to, basically.
I
I
thought
mean, there's
you
a
did.
couple here and there, but I didn't see it in the window in the theater, and it's impossible to get it through any nefarious means. So
Big Mr.
I have
Film
not
critic,
yet
eh?
seen it.
Jeez.
And so I would not have guessed it. And I've heard like similar things from so many people. I'm really stoked to see it. So
Yeah.
It's
It's
great.
an off film in this case. Yeah.
It's great.
yeah, right.
You'll like it, I
Okay,
think.
so we're over to me for my number 10, and I just want to make a little commentary here for the viewers at home, which the dozen or so that even made it this far in the video. We have collectively 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4-way crossovers and 2 3-way crossovers. All of those except 2 have been mentioned so far, and I am about to narrow it down to just 1 not yet being mentioned. I'm going to mention one more 4-way crossover right now that hopefully no one's upset that I have it at number 10.
Spoiler alert.
No, yeah, spoiler alert, sure, why not? But my number 10 is an incredible film that we all agree is an incredible film to different degrees, and I'm excited to talk more about it shortly. But it's The Zone of Interest. and that is by far the favorite for Best International Oscar this weekend. But I'm excited to talk more about that. So Zone of Interest, my
That's
number
a
10.
four-way? Wow.
Four-way.
Nice. Good.
Yep. And we'll get over to Furman.
Okay, my number 10 has been mentioned and will be mentioned again, and that is Barbie.
All right.
Barbie, ever heard of it?
Ever heard of it?
Three.
Mattel?
If we still think Tripp's tie is legitimate, if we do, Barbie's been mentioned 3 times so far.
And won't
Wow.
be mentioned a fourth.
Will it be a 4-way crossover? Who knows?
Who knows?
Stay
Who
tuned.
knows?
Who knows?
Stay tuned.
All right,
Stay tuned
back
next
to
week.
Brad are
Tripp.
going to get snubbed by someone.
back to Tripp for another unique to you.
Yeah, so just for listeners, when we're shouting out colors, green, yellow, blue, I don't know if we mentioned this, but blue means it's unique to you. So this is another blue color on my list, in case you missed the memo at the
3
beginning.
times.
Okay, well, apparently I zoned out 3 times.
'Cause you had a zone of
Whole lot
interest
of
elsewhere.
blue on my list. Yes,
Oh.
yeah.
Nice.
So my next 2 films are the most artistic on my list, which means they may not be everybody's cup of tea. This is a little slice of life film, and slice of life films are really hit and miss for me. It all depends which slice of whose life. And in this case, it's an interesting slice on a very interesting character that lives halfway around the world. This movie is set in Japan, and it follows the life of just an ordinary guy who cleans toilets. That's it. That's the movie. He wakes up, he looks up to the sky, he greets every morning with a smile on his face. He puts on his blue jumpsuit and he goes around sort of high-class neighborhoods of Tokyo, cleaning the most lavish, exquisite toilets. This movie makes me want to go to Japan just to use the freaking toilet. It's called Perfect Days, and it's by the acclaimed, not a Japanese director, German director, Wim Wenders, and who has an affinity for Japan, who's lived there, who was originally hired to do a documentary series about these toilets because he's an accomplished documentarian himself. And he got so enamored with this, he said, "No, I think we can turn this into a feature-length film." And so it is what it is. It's a slice of life film. You see, it's monotonous. It's repeated day after day. He goes about his business, and for some, it might be a boring movie. I'm not selling it too well, but for me, it just, there's something about this film. It stuck with me and continues to stick with me. And upon revisit, it really leapt because it helps me realize how much of life I tend to take for granted, or we can take for granted, just the simple joys of the simple pleasures of life. He goes around with his camera taking Polaroid photos, and some of them he'll keep, just trying to get the light shining through the trees at the right angle, and he'll keep them in a little shoebox. There is a turning point, a bit of a twist halfway through the film. We get a little bit about his backstory when someone from his life reappears and emerges. You get to know him, but Koji Kusho is the actor's name, and he's the film Cure. Some of you may be familiar with that. He's famous for that film and others. But yeah, it's called Perfect Days, and it stuck with me. It's buried deep into my soul. It's a film that when I want a contemplative film to go back to and revisit, just to walk away and realize that, no matter what we're up to in life, whether it seems to be grandiose or it seems to be mundane and monotonous, there's always little joys that we can find and purposeful things we can do. And it's got some of the best needle drops of the year too. He gets in his car going to work, puts in his cassette tapes, and it just rips. Perfect Days. I won't say much more about it, but if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. You got some of you guys have seen it. You saw the same, Nick? Adam, you saw it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kliner.
I was just gonna say, it's a beautiful film for those who like a more quiet, meditative film. Highly recommend it. It's gorgeous. I will say, I was prepared for it to actually be more meditative or more monotonous than it was. I was actually surprised, because the first 2 days are 40 minutes, like 20 minutes each, and so I was like, at that moment, I was like, oh, we're just gonna have like 6 days. That's cool. I'm totally up for that. Just 6 repetitive. And like you said, there's a bit of a twist. There's a little more drama than I really was expecting. But it still is great film. Perfect Days. Yeah. Furman?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like as the self-avowed guy who doesn't do slow as well as everybody else in this group, I didn't find this film slow. I found it pretty immersive. The soundtrack absolutely rips. I mean, you're talking like Velvet Underground, Lou Reed, Nina Simone, like it, and it's so great because it's all the stuff in Japanese is very slow.
Perfect.
Everything he does is sort of backwards. He listens to cassette tapes and all these sorts of things. And then he's just playing these awesome like 60s, 50s American hits.
He has no idea what Spotify is.
Yeah, that scene's great. And the other thing I'll say is like I think Paris, Texas is a film that all of us love to some degree, I think.
My favorite film of the 80s.
Yeah, it's so, and that the vendors thing he does in Paris, Texas, he does again here, where it's like he does reveal to you something about the character, but not too much. So you're still like, something's wrong, something's up, there's a past, but he doesn't spell it out for you.
Doesn't spoon
And
feed.
he never oversells his stuff. And like there's so many filmmakers that just don't do that anymore. They just they spoon feed their audience, or they don't trust us to make our own conclusions, or all that sort of stuff. So this I didn't have this, but I thought it was freaking awesome. I really liked it.
Awesome.
Yeah, Scott, you'll love this one.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. Make movies easier to see.
Absolutely. Okay, we're only giving Jason just a moment to catch his breath, because all three of us have we're just going to mention titles here. So Scott, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is a little independent film by a not a little known director named Christopher Nolan. It is Oppenheimer at number 9.
What?
Perhaps you've heard of it.
What is happening?
Wait, crossover.
Number 9.
If you're following along, I had Oppenheimer at 12. Tripp had Oppenheimer at 11.
Nick loved it the most.
Furman had Oppenheimer.
What is happening? I sat next to this man having an orgasm through 3 hours of that movie. Number 9. Oh my God.
It's inappropriate.
Anyways,
It's a family show. Come on.
Yeah. Well,
Also, it's number 9 on my list. I loved the movie.
These are all. That's what we always forget. We argue about this, but these are all great films.
It's a great year for film.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's the best year of the 2020s.
Honestly, and this is what I was saying to Nick off before we start recording. I honestly was letting Oppenheimer fall to 16 for a long time. And anyways, we'll talk more about Oppenheimer when somebody will mention it again.
Somebody.
Tripp and Kliner prefer the Christopher Nolan movies that make no sense at all. Those are the ones that Tripp and Kliner like.
Yeah, the ones that make us cry. Okay,
the 7-hour night.
More feeling.
My number 8. Sorry, my number 8. I said that. No, 9. We're on 9.
We're on 9.
I'm done. Sorry, I was making a joke and then I got distracted. Okay, my number 9 has been mentioned and will be mentioned again later. Thankfully, I'm not mad about it, Furman. I'm glad that it's higher on someone else's list, and that is the Odyssey epic. Beau is Afraid.
No way.
Who I also saw sitting next to someone having an orgasm. No, never mind. But Tripp and I did see this together. We did see it together, and but we'll come back to Beau is Afraid and over to Nick for his number 9.
Yeah, we have this thing where we go see Joaquin Phoenix movies together.
Pretty cool.
That's sick. Scott, remember when you and I just crapped on Joker for like a year? That was so good.
Folie à deux. It's coming, Kliner. Folie à deux.
That's Tripp and I.
Guys, it's an awesome mental health movie appended to a comic book movie. Okay, never mind.
All right, focus.
Yeah, number 9. This is coming up again. It is May, December. Todd Haynes.
Excellent.
Okay, back to Tripp.
Okay, surprise. Another blue one on my list. This is the second last blue one, so I start getting into the chalkier picks starting later.
I backed you up on Perfect Days.
This is even more artistic than Perfect Days. This is the most artistic film on my list. I don't think any of you got to this one, sadly. A24 produced this gem of a film. It's a directorial debut, which I typically have a couple of those every year. It's by a director who was a poet and a photographer. When I discovered that, it made perfect sense. What would a movie look like if we took memories of our life, good, bad, and ugly, and we cobbled them together into a film? Well, it wouldn't be linear. It wouldn't necessarily be our faces on screen, but it could be smells, sights, sounds, touch. And this movie, I think, has hands on screen more than faces, which might be a turnoff for some, but it's called All Dirt Roads Taste of Salt. And it's basically a memory piece, all of these memories stitched together of a Black woman growing up in Mississippi in the South. And so we see childhood memories, we see adolescence, we see adulthood with her extended family and friends and community. There is some connective tissue. This isn't just, I was thinking about some of Malik's more experimental films watching this, but there's a lot of connective tissue. It's not just cobbling together randomly. There is some flow and some clear choice to how this is stitched together. It's just beautiful. It's a movie you feel. Some of these movies, sometimes you just have to feel a movie. You got to get into it. And I left the movie. I just sat in stillness for about half hour after, just pondering not only what I saw, but some of my own memories, painful and joyous memories. And so it really stuck with me. The final scene is a banger in this film. There's very little dialogue, but the closing scene is one of my top 5 scenes of the year. And it just talks about the power of experience and how experiences shape us in the world for better, for worse, and how nothing really starts or ends. It just changes. That's a philosophical, theological statement I've been leaning into lately, and to see it on screen was pretty powerful. So All Dirt Roads Taste of Salt. It's only 90 minutes. So even though it's very artistic, it's not like a 3-hour epic. Probably the longest hug I've ever seen on screen. Uncomfortably long, but so tender and so beautiful. Check it out, guys. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this one if you get to it down the road. I don't know, Kliner, you were trying to get to this one, but you never got to it.
Yeah. I think
okay.
it just wasn't on the streamer, or I had to rent it or something. But I mean, it is accessible at this point. You just got to look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
Awesome.
Richard Brody was loving it, and Josh Larson, I think you know him, Kliner. It was in his top 5 of the year. I think
Oh, yeah.
Christian.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. Good recommend. And so that's your number 8, All Dirt Roads Taste of
Right.
Salt. We're moving on to Scott's number 8. His number 8 has been mentioned,
was
but
just mentioned.
he's going to take the lead here because he's the only other person to include this film. So
It's a shame. And it sounds like
Sorry,
2 of
guys.
us are smarter than the other 2. And the 2 of us that are smarter are me and Nick. Because my number 8 is May December.
Oh, let's go.
Todd Haynes film. Gosh, what to say? Never has a film about pedophilia been so entertaining. It is.
Oh boy.
It's. I mean, obviously, it's kind of loosely based on the Mary Kay Letourneau story.
We're now
from
down
the
to 5
80s.
years.
Yeah, and it's like I don't even know how to describe it other than calling it like an intentional lifetime. It's like a Lifetime movie, but artistic. It's
Right.
extremely overdramatic, extremely the needle drops are like the score is outrageous, and I think it's hard to describe a movie that is so wildly entertaining for parts of it and then just deeply sad for obvious other parts of it. And man, I loved the style choices in this movie. I can often take or leave Natalie Portman. I think she's excellent in this movie. I think this is the kind of role that's like great for her. Like she's just like an acting nerd. Like she's just an acting nerd. So her playing an actress, trying to like become this child predator is just, it ends up being so funny because it's just making fun of those people. Really, it's just making fun of the people that take that stuff so seriously. And I mean, my biggest takeaway from this movie is like justice for Charles Melton. Like
Seriously.
I can't think of a performance this year that I was more impressed by, especially considering I don't think I've ever seen Charles Melton on screen before this. Man, he just plays. He's married to the like Mary Kay Letourneau figure in the movie. So he was the abused one, and man, he gives this like stilted Arrested Development type adult performance. It's just it's like it's stunning. It's incredibly good. So May December, I found it deeply moving and also deeply entertaining and also really sad. So yeah, it was awesome. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Well, you hit most of them. Like the whole, I have Charlie Melton in all caps.
Yeah.
And I think the Portman thing is interesting because it's like she brought the film to Haynes, right? So like, and it's right. It's like it's almost like she's self-aware about the things that people have said about her as a
Mm,
performer,
mm,
and then just almost sends herself up in the movie. So there's like meta stuff going on. And I think speaking of meta stuff, I think the reason the Academy just took a dump on this movie is because like they're making fun of actors like a
Yeah.
lot of the time, you know. But I'm interested. The other thing I'm interested, man, is like it's all about cultural obsession with celebrity and true crime in the '90s for sure. But I'm interested in this whole idea of like the nature of performance and identity, like because it becomes this whole like a la persona, like
Yeah.
who's the real one performing? Is it Portman trying to be more, or is it more trying to be herself because she's like performing in her own life? So once that stuff starts spinning around, it's really cool. And then, like you said, you just got Milton. Melton just he's like playing like very low key against two really powerful performances. And so I just think the like three of them together is pretty awesome. So on the other hand, I totally get how people would watch this movie and be like, what is happening? Like, if you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think it's campy and funny, I think you're going to get lost and not enjoy it. So
Yeah.
that's,
It's a tonally, I think, one of the more confusing movies I've seen in a long time.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
didn't really get into the groove of the movie until a few minutes in. I was like, oh, okay. Like I see what's happening. At first I was like, this is bad, I think.
yeah. Here's what they're doing. Yeah.
I'm just glad that we have enough hot dogs, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
What
Like that
my
scene
favorite
is
one of my favorite moments from the movie. Yeah.
right,
I
right,
like the
right.
butterflies.
Yeah.
I was on the nose, but it was good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit on the
Exactly.
nose, yeah.
Yeah, a little on the nose.
All right.
Am I up?
No, you are not, sir. It is over to me for number 8.
Oh, right,
Calm down, Nick.
I thought I was after you. I can't remember.
But yeah, May December number 8 for Scott, and over to me for my number 8, which is, I know I have sympathy from one of you. Sadly, it's unique to me. And that is the best Canadian film of 2023, guys. Say it with me, Blackberry.
Oh yeah,
Guys,
I love Black
2023 was a weird year of can we call it capitalism cinema? Like, hey
Yeah.
guys, I've got a story of a brand. I've got a story about someone who made money. Okay, that's weird. Flamin' Hot Cheetos, Nike, Beanie Babies, or whatever they're called. Yeah, Beanie. How about
GameStop.
Yeah.
how about a wildly entertaining film, not about success, but about tragedy and absolute corporate implosion? That's the story of Blackberry, which is ingeniously and hilariously written and directed by the great Canadian Matt Johnson, who's quickly becoming one of my favorite filmmakers. If you have not heard of or seen, he has 2 early films, The Crazies and Operation Avalanche. Please look those up. Those are just wildly out of the box genre pieces. He's not interested in convention when it comes to storytelling, and he applies those principles to Blackberry, where he says repeatedly in interviews that he shot it like a animal documentary with long lenses from afar, and just let his actors go as he told the triumphantly tragic story of the rise and fall of Research in Motion. For Canadians, we've heard of that company for most of our lifetime because it was a huge success story, and now it created the smartphone market and the existence of smartphones, and now literally no one in the world owns a BlackBerry.
Right.
It's an incredible story, and on top of that, 2 performances that no one saw coming: Jay Baruchel and Glenn Howerton. The talk of the town for in some sectors was Glenn Howerton, let's get him an Oscar nomination. All
Right.
for it. Incredible, wild, angry performance. But I also just don't want to forget Jay Baruchel for his quiet, unexpected performance as a genius, introverted, nerd, and the guy who the brains of the operation, right? And
Right.
anyways, it's a true gem. It really is. Every time I've watched it 3 times, I'm never not totally engaged in entertained by this film. So can't recommend it enough. That's Blackberry, and that is my number 8.
Great
That was
choice.
a good movie.
So
Enjoyed
this
it.
might be unpopular with like I think at least Scott, but to me, Blackberry was the film Air wanted to be, like but
Yeah.
didn't
I
quite
mean,
get there.
yeah, I mean they're pretty similar to me in
But
terms of
again, the
quality.
difference being success and failure, right? That's the distinction.
Right.
Well, and for me, the distinction is that I'm always aware it's Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Jason Bateman. Whereas this movie, I'm like, I mean, I didn't watch It's Always Sunny, which I know is a sin in its own right, but like Howerton is doing something way outside the box here in this movie to me. But
He's an
so
excellent
like
yeller.
huh?
He's an excellent yeller.
He is. He was my hard cut for my If I Ran.
That
the
would have been an
Oscars best.
awesome nomination if he would have got nominated. That would have been awesome.
That would have been.
It would have
good.
been sick. Yeah, it would have been sick.
Yeah.
But I really like this one was up for me and just sort of slowly slid down. But I loved it too.
All right, keep us rolling, Furman. You're number 8.
Oh yeah, sorry. My number 8 will be talked about again, and I'm freaking pumped because I love this movie. I don't understand why it hasn't gotten more love around, and that's Christian Petzold's A Fire. Absolutely love it.
Nice.
Great.
Back to Tripp.
All
Number
right, I
7.
get to breathe a bit. I got some yellow ones, which means they're going to be coming back around again. This one was mentioned, and I believe it's going to be mentioned twice more. You misspoke earlier, Kliner. The actual best or scariest horror movie of the year is not Talk to Me. It's The Zone of Interest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my
fair.
number 7.
Yeah.
And we will discuss it more a little bit later.
And it's to me, my number 7. This movie was weird for me. I had like a real up and down relationship with this movie after I watched it. But like I think ultimately it landed on my list because it just felt so real and so lived in, and the director, when you hear the director, it's gonna make sense. It's Kelly Reichardt. It's showing up.
Yeah.
Man, I just Kelly Reichardt is special. I mean, she made First Cow, which was what, number 1 on a couple of our lists from a couple years ago.
2 and 3.
Yeah,
First count.
Nick really loved it for the sweeping, if I remember correctly. Just a lot of sweeping in the movie. But anyway, this movie is starring Michelle Williams, who her and Reichardt have worked together, I think, like 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah. Every film.
They just like really, I think tonally, they just really understand each other and work well together. And just, it's some of the best stuff that Michelle Williams does, I think, is when she works with Kelly Reichardt. So it's just about a normal person trying to make art in the world and like what that looks like. And the movie is like deeply hilarious, like really funny, like understated, but really funny because like just the absurdity of these situations that finds herself in, like tending to an injured pigeon while she tries to
Yeah.
finish her statues for this art show that she's putting on. She's got a family that's just a mess, and they're all asking her for things and expecting things of her. And she works for her mom. Her dad's a great artist. Her brother's got mental health issues, and she's just trying to put on an art show, plus it's the genesis of Andre 3000 flute albums.
Flute
So
player.
yeah, so I just think it's a really quietly, like, deeply realistic movie about like how unromantic making art can be, like how difficult it is to, when art isn't your vocation, when it's just something that you do because you love it. Man, it's just not easy. Life is hard. There's so many things happening in life, and to try and find this like deeply creative part of you at the same time is really difficult, and also like beautiful and funny and hard, like it. So I love this movie. I thought it was just really wonderful. It made me feel really good to watch, and I am disappointed in all of you. Not having it.
Well, speaking of showing up, my pulse forgot to show up for that one.
Nick's not a Kelly Reichardt fan, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No, actually,
Sweeping and
okay.
clay. No, not his thing.
No, it was good. It was good. Okay, look, let's say this about this
it's
film.
good.
Like Hong Chow and
John
John
Magaro is in
Magaro
it.
are
Woo! He'll be
becoming
coming
like
back later.
undefeated as character actors,
Yeah.
man. Like,
Yeah.
and this actually, this was slow to me, but it did land, I think. I finally got into its rhythm eventually.
Yeah, it is.
I'm excited to revisit it because it did miss me too. Like, it's still a very good film. but
Yeah.
it didn't grip me quite the way I was expecting it to. But I really want to give it another chance, or just appreciate it more. That's really all I want to do. So
Yep.
it was a good one.
Love it.
Awesome. That's your number 7. Okay.
Yes.
And so my number 7, I got some green, guys. I'm bringing it around on one of our 4-way crossovers. Is this one of our first green 4-way crossovers? It might be. I think it is. Guys, this movie shouldn't work, but it was the most successful of the year. Can we say it together?
No, because I don't know what it is.
Barbie.
Barbie.
Barbie, Scott. Heard of it? Ever heard of it? Um,
Familiar.
guys, this movie shouldn't work, and yet it's nearly flawless. It is genius.
Greta doesn't miss.
Greta Gerwig, man. I mean, who takes, again, here we are talking about capitalism. Who takes corporate IP and turns it into an essential social satire that has this sacred undertone emphasizing our individual belovedness, and acceptance of who we are and understanding our identity in the eyes of a creator, that's just, that shouldn't exist. Or even if it does exist, it can't happen successfully. And yet Barbie competes with Blackberry as being the most entertaining experience of the year. Another one I watched 3 times, because why wouldn't you just keep watching it? It's so brilliant. It's so funny. It's got old school Hollywood musical numbers that are out the door with their color and choreography. Greta deserves all the recognition. Margot Robbie's performance really is remarkable, and I think generally, maybe at this point not overlooked for all the anger that she got, for not being recognized by the Academy. But for a while, I thought we're talking about everybody but Margot, and Margot's performance is truly complicated and really brilliant. But I will say that America Ferrera is great. I'm not sure it was an Oscar role, but whatever. She's great, and she delivers that climactic speech profoundly. And I was crying. I cried multiple times in this movie. I was laughing, falling out of my seat, and I was crying. That's basically the perfect combination for me in terms of like brilliant satire, entertainment. Makes you think, makes you laugh, makes you tear up. What else to say other than, yes, we're giving all the praise to Ryan Gosling, but I came out of that film I couldn't help but compare it to Will Ferrell in Elf. And of course Will Ferrell's in this movie, but like the level that the level of commitment on Gosling's part to the absurdity of the role, I mean, it's remarkable, and very few people can do it. So anyways, we've all heard of it. We all love it. It's Barbie. And for people who, I don't know, if the one person's watching this, they were like, I haven't seen Barbie. I didn't think it was worth the hype. Just put it on. You'll, at the very least, I actually ran into several people over the year working at the store I was working at during Christmas. And like the people that turned their nose up at Barbie, I just tried to boil it down. I was like, do you want to laugh for 2 hours? Like, do you want to smile for 2 hours? Like, forget all the political divergent nonsense. Like, just put on a funny, hilarious, heartwarming movie. Like, it's just, that's what it is. So Barbie's my number 7.
I watched this movie again after I saw it in theater, and I really went in with the intention to be, I'm like, this movie is gonna get it this time. Like, a 2-hour long commercial for a toy, and like they're gonna make a bunch of money off of this. And I was trying to be really like pessimistic, and I still had a good time. Like and all the stuff that it's trying to accomplish works. And the extreme like physicality from Margot Robbie is incredible, and like the set design is amazing, and the tributes to like old Hollywood and old musicals are great, and Greta Gerwig's a genius, and it just works despite me really not wanting it to work. It works great. So Barbie is wonderful.
High praise.
Awesome.
Yeah, I went in cautiously optimistic as well, thinking, all right, in Greta we trust. And like you mentioned, Kliner, hit all those emotional beats. It wobbles in portions when they're in the real world. The whole Will Ferrell portion wobbles, but every time I've watched it 3 times as well. I've laughed, I've cried multiple times, and That's why it's worthy of being in my collection.
Absolutely.
Keep physical media alive. That's
There we
my
go.
plea
There we
today.
go.
Maybe all we have left at some point. Anyway.
Ugh,
Yeah.
ads and
Yeah,
streaming suck.
I mean, it's funny, like the difference between because I wrote down, like, to me, it's a blockbuster with real ideas, and we just don't get those much. So you guys talked about how it hits your heart, and I agree. Like before the America Ferrera thing was a meme, I thought I walked out and like that was my conclusion. Like this is incredible, and like I was, visibly emotional about it. But it's to me, it's what she does with the head stuff, like the fact that she somehow is going to like take on the cultural baggage, like all the IP stuff that Scott said, and then the competing narratives about Barbie, like the new lines are inclusive and diverse, and then the other side, which is like it's about body dysmorphia and it's impossible standards for feminine beauty, and somehow she takes all that on, deconstructs it, makes a comedy out of it with musical elements. Like from a head standpoint, I just don't know how she pulled it off. Like sometimes
Yeah.
I think that to me is the real achievement. And then and then we get this like sort of Malik ending and these emotional
Yeah,
stakes that
that scene is amazing.
are awesome too. So it like kept sliding down my list, but I was also kind of like I don't know that I think all of these people should have been nominated for acting, but I think it's a pretty incredible achievement in directing and writing.
Yeah,
So
but
I don't know.
Greta didn't get nominated for directing, did she?
No,
No,
writing,
but
I mean,
writing,
Writing and
but I
producing.
mean,
writing,
look
producing.
at the people who were. I mean, that's
I know.
this is the year we
I still think
have.
it's a bit of a snub, but anyway, we don't.
Yeah,
Who are you
no,
taking
I get
out?
it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
they're
the
all
thing.
great.
Who are we getting out?
All right,
Anyway,
Furman, keep it going with
Yeah.
your number 7.
my
But
number
you know
seven
who
is
I
the
want
same.
out? Wait, time out. You know who I want out? That guy over your left shoulder. Can you close that curtain a little more? Because that's killing
Yeah,
the vibe here.
I can't. That
No?
is my
Okay, all right.
son's favorite football player, and I'm in his room. I tried to get rid of it. There we go.
It's like
I can't.
it's like you're living like never mind.
All right.
I know.
All right,
Continue.
Furman.
Listen,
I digress.
my number 7 is the same as Jason's number 7. It's the zone of interest, and I'm excited to talk about it at length later.
Still coming up. 3 of us have
Yes.
mentioned it.
Job, Scott.
All right, back to Tripp for another one that we may mention later.
Yeah, I was a little worried this would be blue on my list, but it will be talked about again. And when I make these lists, here's my methodology. It's like splitting hairs. What goes 8, what goes 9, what goes 7. So I try and kind of nestle things together that have a narrative. So I had my 2 artistic films together, and now I've got the 2 most horrific films together. The Zone of Interest and Killers of the Flower Moon is my number 6. If this was best craft or most important films of the year, these would be 1 and 2. They end up being 7 and 6. Didn't really know where to put it. Glad someone else has it even higher, and we'll talk about it again more later. Thanks,
Awesome.
Scott, or whoever. I don't know.
Whoever.
Yeah. Big mystery. Big mystery. Okay. Yeah, Scott's gonna now bring it home. He's got green for something that's been mentioned
Yeah.
twice, and somebody decided not to include it. Huh.
Sorry,
I mean,
guys.
I get it. This movie
Kleiner had a better time than me.
Yeah, this movie is certainly not for everyone. It is probably my favorite working director, Ari Aster, and it's Beau's Afraid.
Let's go.
This movie, I remember seeing it in the theater. I haven't rewatched it. I really wanted to rewatch it, but when I saw it in the theater, I mean, almost a year ago now, I remember kind of sitting in the movie for almost, I think, an hour before I understood what was really happening. Like before I understood like what the intentionality was. Obviously I still don't fully know. I don't like talk to Ari Aster on a regular basis or anything, but I felt like it really clicked in for me after about an hour into the movie. It is 3 hours long. It is deeply upsetting at times. It is incredibly absurd. It is like an odyssey. Joaquin Phoenix's character is just anxiety. That's his character is anxiety. I mean, he's just the most anxious person in the world. And I think the way they portray that anxiety as like how oppressive it is, but also how absurd it can be, how funny it can be.
Right.
Man, it felt cathartic to me.
Yes.
As someone that that has generalized anxiety disorder that takes medication for anxiety, I felt a catharsis going through this. I was like, this is truly absurd. Um, Anxiety is a truly ridiculous thing. And I don't know if I don't know if I would need 3 hours in a movie to tell the story, but I am so grateful for this movie. I think it's just really funny. Um, and Joaquin Phoenix is incredible. There's so many small performances that are incredible. I really enjoyed this movie, and I can't wait to see it again and kind of like dig more into like the Easter eggs and how all the little stuff in the movie. But I think Ari Aster's an absolute genius, and yeah, I can't wait for what he does next.
Well, let me just say, because I had it high up as well, Scott. When you do return it for a second time, knowing exactly what it is and where it's going, you're able to let yourself go. And for the mirror, for those of us, as you were saying, with anxiety, that he's holding the mirror up to us, you're able to let it go a little more, and it just becomes like, I guess I've already named my funniest comedy of the year, but the next funniest comedy of the year, it becomes
Yeah.
more comedic
Right.
the more you return to
Yes.
it, because the absurdity not only is all the more personal, but you can see it from an arm's length. And so the whole movie's manifestation is like, can you think of any time you've giggled or laughed at someone, or you've been laughed at for worrying about something around in the world and day-to-day life that is absurd, that, oh, this person's out to kill me, or if we turn this corner, we're going to crash, or all those little momentary, like, imagine all of them are made manifest and is an actual world someone is living in. That's what this movie is. And again, it's not for everyone, like you said, but if let me just say, like, too, what you said, Scott, like, this is the most affordable therapy I've ever had. The cheapest therapy session I've ever had. And that's what it is. It truly was cathartic for me. There's a lot of personal stuff that I was working through as I was watching it and rewatching it. But again, it holds the mirror up, and then it safely allows you to hold these things at arm's length and laugh at them, as we should be doing in our day-to-day life. And yeah, what a trip, and what a great thing. So, Furman, you loved it too.
Yeah, just existential dread in male anxiety pushed so far that it becomes like darkly hilarious and then goes even further.
Yeah.
Like I and we didn't even talk about like all of the sort of like sexual aspects and daddy issues that come into, like, literally are personified as a phallic monster at one point. And the Parker Posey scene, it was maybe my favorite scene of the entire year.
So funny.
Oh my God, just hysterical, man. And I will say, like, I think this movie kind of loses its footing as it rounds into the third hour for a bit. And that's why I had it a little lower. But my thing is, like, when you're swinging this hard for the fences, like, I'm gonna allow it because the highs of this movie, or the things it gets to, are just way up there. So I look forward to getting to it again. It's
Yeah.
it's awesome.
I again highly recommend you revisit it and report back, because again, it's very, yeah, I just found it an even more freeing experience the second time round, and I'm looking
Right.
forward to seeing it again. So
I-
awesome.
Yeah, I need to give
I-
it another look. I was distracted. My date was constantly trying to hold my hand in the theater, and I had some high anxiety.
I was
so-
moved. Sorry.
I I've like, I mean, I think Kleiner, you told a similar story where I just found myself like freaking De Niro and Cape Fear just in the back of the theater, be like, "Ah!" Like,
Oh, but that was the thing, Scott, right? You and I both had the same experience, where the
Yeah.
very final moment and final shot, we both bursted out laughing, and in both of our separate theaters, we were the only ones laughing.
I was like, oh, this is
I think that shot was awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
funny.
so funny. Okay, all right, we're
So
moving
good.
on. Bo is Afraid is, for those who it makes sense, it's incredible. For others, move on. That's
I'll move
Scott's,
us on then.
that's Scott's number 6, right?
Oh no, it's yours. Yeah.
And so now we're on to my number 6. which thankfully is going to be mentioned later by maybe that same soulmate. We'll see. But my number 6 is an incredible work of art that's trying real hard for you to love it, and that is Maestro. So we'll come back to Maestro in a little bit, which is very exciting that someone has it higher than me. So over to Nick, who is going to lead the way on another 4-way crossover. Nick.
Is it Maestro, Nick?
No, it's really not. It's really not going to be Maestro. Nope. I am still confused. Okay, my number 6 is Oppenheimer. What the hell is happening?
Tiny film.
How am I the highest on this movie? Like I knew that I'd be higher than Jason on it, but I thought you other two would be
Hey, Nolan's my guy.
yeah.
And I love it, and it's an incredible. Okay, I want you to praise it, but here, this was the thing, because I already confessed earlier that I was willing to let it fall. It didn't. It still was in my honorable mentions, but there was we're looking back. I saw it twice, 2 or 3 times. There was a difference between experiencing Oppenheimer and recalling Oppenheimer. That's why I allowed it to drip down further than I expected, because again, longest time it was in my top 5, but as the year went on and I saw others, anyways, that's my thing. But again, that doesn't mean we're only talking about great films here, and we all agree that these are all the best of the year. We're nitpicking about 6 or 11, right? But so Furman, tell us the best parts about Oppenheimer.
Oh gosh. Okay. So like here's my logic. My logic is that this film as a totality of construction is such a behemoth that like it warrants being a top 5 film. So like I'm talking about Cillian Murphy's performance, Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, the scoring and sound design, just the sheer scope of it, the Trinity test, like all of the things that it covers. So in my mind, it was like, this needs to be top 5, but I put it 6 because I have some issues with the third hour of the film. Scott and I famously feuded over the treatment of Emily Blunt's character in the film, which is, my Nolan issue. And so I think, and Damon's performance, like Damon comes in and he's kind of he's playing in like a different register. He's almost in a different movie in a way that kind of resets the deck as it's proceeding. This is the one I wanted to revisit to see if it would actually rise or fall. I didn't get to, so I kind of was left with like the impressions that I had when I first saw it with Scott. Actually, the first time we went to the movies together in a long time, which is that my reflection was like, wow, Nolan got one. Like he got one. Like he did something he was trying to do. It wasn't over the top and convoluted and nonsensical. His tripartite time division actually worked, like in a way that was, it was at least graspable to me. So, I actually would love to hear what you guys have to say about it. I wrote down in my notes for this, let them cook. That's what I wrote, because I thought you guys are going to talk about it. I was like,
I like famously, not famously. Famously to this group of people have a complicated relationship with Christopher Nolan movies. I find his stuff more rooted in reality to be better, and this to me is by far Christopher Nolan's best film. I think it's an incredibly important movie, and I think creatively the first 2 hours are absolutely unassailable. I think like the pacing, the tension, the pacing is like just breakneck. It just never stops. Which is like kudos to Cillian Murphy too, to be able to keep up and just keep this performance going. It's a really incredible piece of acting, and I mean the third hour is not as good as the first 2 hours. I mean, you build to the Trinity test and then there's a natural come down, but I think that's okay. I think that it's like a coda almost. It still is a part of the movie that's important to me and works, but Yeah, I think it's an incredible film, and I just liked 8 movies more than that. That's all.
Yeah.
You watch it more than once, Scott, or just once?
No, I just thought the one time.
Okay. Yeah, first time coming out, I thought the same. It kind of dipped in the third hour. I watched it again with my wife, and we discussed after, and she really appreciated the third hour. We talked about how important that third hour is to moving away from Cillian Murphy's character and his internal struggle to the struggle for power and control on more of a grandiose scale with some of the other characters and what's happening in the geopolitical world. So I think I appreciated it more after the second viewing, in particular the third hour. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and Tripp, you mentioned earlier, horror films, jumping off of like that's what one of the very first things that I did appreciate about this film is that, oh, this is, I mean, Nolan likes to jump around and try different genres, and this was his attempt at horror, and I think quite successfully at making Oppenheimer a Nolan version of a horror film. And I'll just say the one thing I'll say, I'll note of praise is, way too many people, in my opinion, are disregarding Emily Blunt's performance. And yes, we talk in this movie world ad nauseum about Nolan's general depiction of women on screen. He has had a handful that are well written and drawn out, and I think this one actually is reflective of who the actual woman in real life was.
Has
But
he though?
but
Has he?
but what I was gonna say was Emily Blunt elevates the written character.
Emily Blunt rules.
Not talking about
Scott,
Tenet
Scott,
here.
you're arguing against yourself here, Scott.
Not talking
I
about
mean,
Tenet.
Emily Blunt is the exception that proves the rule.
So,
Honestly.
well, and my other point would be Carrie Ann Moss in Memento would be the other person to point to as a
Oh,
female character
fair.
that's essential. Thank you guys. But anyways,
Very
but
Jessica Chastain.
I love.
That movie sucks. Oh, excuse me.
I came away from my first viewing with Emily Blunt thinking, oh, I don't like this feeling of not liking Emily Blunt, right? She's
Yeah.
beloved and she's charismatic, and she normally doesn't even have to act because we're with her. But she has to play a despicable person, or at least a person who's made despicable choices with their life. And she's successful because by the end, I didn't want to be around that character anymore. And that means something. And maybe that's what people are disassociating from and not connecting the dots of, like, that was an incredibly effective role and performance. And so, anyways, I'm just praising Emily Blunt, that I think she actually is deserving of the Oscar nomination, despite what other people might be saying. But all right, so now we're moving on to, we're in our top 5 guys, and so we're gonna hit some more crossovers here, and Tripp's gonna keep that ball rolling with his number 5. Tripp, what do you got?
Yeah, this year there was not a clear number one. All of these top 5 were in the running in the conversation, and that gave me some Beau was Afraid anxiety. But number 5's been mentioned. It's a movie that's apparently not quite as good as Godzilla -1, but also is the best screenplay of the year. That movie, of course, is Anatomy of the Fall. And we're going to talk about it a little later.
Wow.
We're gonna let Furman cook.
Yep.
Spoiler alert.
Now, Scott, we're gonna
Wow,
move
it's
over
been
to
mentioned
your
3 times.
Scott. We're gonna move over to your number 5, but I don't know if this is a surprise to you because I can't remember if I made you any notes. But your number 5 is tied with someone else's number 5, so we're actually gonna have the conversation right now. So,
Oh, wonderful.
Scott and Furman, take the lead. Scott, what do you got for number 5?
Number 5. Me and Nick, we are tied at number 5. Yorgos Lanthimos's Poor Things.
Yeah, baby.
I mean, I think the funniest movie of the year. I think the most I laughed in a movie this year. Emma Stone is miraculous in this movie, like unbelievably
Yes.
good. Mark Ruffalo also miraculous in this movie. Just like, thank God this guy's not doing fucking Marvel movies anymore. He's an incredible actor. And man, I think there's something about like Yorgos Lanthimos. He's got this like really hyper stylized visual sense, and that can be really off-putting for me. C. Anderson, Wes. But like, he has this way of having this like really distinct and loud visual style, but it never feels like too much to me. It just feels it's smart, and interesting. And I mean, I think a big part of it is because he just puts incredible actors in his movies. I mean,
Yeah.
just like he works with some of the best people. So I love this movie. I think it's the most quotable movie of the year. I just think there are a ton of great things to say that you can repeat from this movie. Probably not. It depends on the company. You don't want to say it.
Yeah, right.
Furious jumping, a lot of furious jumping.
Yeah, furious jumping.
Excuse me, I
But
must
yeah,
go punch that baby.
Yeah.
yeah. But it was a really fun movie, and I think a really smart movie as well, and kind of jams the uh growing up experience into the course of a 2-hour movie with an adult Frankenstein woman,
Yeah.
So
Right. Right.
it's really great.
Exactly.
I just love it's deeply absurd, but like super fun. And yeah, Poor Things, great. Nick, what do you think?
It's a steampunk coming of age Frankensteinian sex comedy.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, it's
Sums
like
it up.
yeah, I think like Ruffalo is unbelievable in this movie.
So
Like
funny.
the stuff he's playing is just hysterical, and what he's doing. And I think that to me, like Emma Stone, I mean, people were like, I was listening to her talk to Olivia Colman in an interview. Like people were coming after her, like, "Oh, there's all this nudity and all this stuff from like a male director," and she's like, "I was an executive producer on the film. Like,
Yeah.
I signed up for all of this." Like, and I just think that her performance is like, it's just so bold, man. Like,
Yeah.
she's not just naked. She's like all the time naked, and she's like doing all this other stuff and finding her own way in the world, Yorgos is always like attacking societal norms and tearing him down. I don't know. It's hilarious.
I mean,
It's amazing.
it's her performance is like outrageously good.
Yeah.
Just the physical, just how physical. I mean, I talked about Margot Robbie's physicality in Barbie, but like Emma Stone takes it to like another level. I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
the way she's like moving around like a toddler as like full
Yeah,
grown
exactly.
woman.
Like all the early stuff in the movie too.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. So she's wonderful, and the movie is wonderful.
Awesome. I famously loved it and was in a theater where someone wrote actual feedback to the management and said that was a weird movie. People were laughing too much.
Yeah.
And I was the person laughing too much.
Yeah.
Stop enjoying
apparently you
yourself in
didn't.
the movies, people.
Apparently they
It's
didn't
a
get
comedy.
We should say, like, I know we're moving, but like, it is a movie about freedom and agency, right? Like, she's finding her agency in the world. So there is something thematic to it. Like, I don't think it's empty. Like, I think it's.
Oh no.
He's probing something there, and I think it's like it rewards like inquiry and thought about it.
Yes,
That's all.
If let's put it this way, if Yorgos wasn't so artistic, he'd be an academic.
Right.
Because he always has an essay on his mind, and then he runs crazy with it, right? And that's to our pleasure, right? And
it's really not. Kliner, are you on a first name basis with Yorgos?
Yeah, man.
You and Yorgos just like hanging out?
Yorgos, yep.
You and Yorgi?
Just chilling in
Yorgi.
Greece. He invited me over, Yorgi.
Chilling in Greece.
All right, we're moving on.
Furman's summer home in Greece.
You guys loved Poor Things at number 5, Nick and Scott. To my number 5, which is we're now completing our other 3-way crossover. This time we shall be shaming Furman for not including Ferrari.
It was
Furman.
literally number 16. Just saying.
The guy we
16
recorded a Michael Mann pod together. Come on, dude.
I know. I'm sorry.
Ferrari.
Super realistic.
I guess it's true, guys. I really am the biggest Michael Mann fan here.
Not the biggest Fincher fan.
Yeah, what
which is why Heat is my 6th favorite Michael Mann. Anyways,
jeez.
Ferrari.
Cut.
Here's the
Waving
truth.
hand, edit that part out.
Here's the truth. Ferrari did bump Heat out of my top 5 Michael Mann movies. And I'll say I didn't realize how much I loved it and how successful it was until my second viewing. I walked out of my first viewing of Ferrari and loved it. And it was sort of on a whim one night. I had time to kill. And I was like, I'll go see Ferrari again. And I was, for some reason, I was floored by it the second time. And I was able to acknowledge and recognize that this is the best acting of the year, the best lead male acting and best lead female acting. Penelope Cruz and Adam Driver, in my opinion, gave the best performances of the year with Michael Mann's Ferrari.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean that sincerely. Those are incredible. They are fully embodied, and you feel every moment their authentic rage, emotion, suppression, repression, and the struggles that they're faced with. Now, there's another actor in the movie that
I was
kind
gonna
of
say Shailene
throws
Woodley.
it off.
Shailene Woodley really brings it.
I'm making the spaghetti, right? For our illegitimate son. Yeah, there's another actor in there. She's trying her darndest, but I don't know what happened there.
She's a great actor. She's a good actress too.
She is a good actress.
Just a miscast here.
But anyways, there's enough glory on screen from Driver and Cruz that it's, I mean, check out those last names too, right? I mean, this is Ferrari's, I take joy in it too, just because good old Michael Mann, the cold, clean, clinical professional, he's getting soft in his old age, because this is just a classical Hollywood tale about obsessive professionals, but it's really about the interpersonal relationships. The women really are the center of the story here. The wife, the mistress, the mother, the elderly mother. I mean, like they're the linchpins of the story. Because Ferrari is the true story of Firenzo and reconciling his passion with the people in his life who they're the only reason for his success. And that's a pretty incredible tale, and it's told and captured elegantly and classically, and really, like I like the climactic tragedy. It kills me. It killed me every time. It made me literally gasp out loud.
At how bad the CGI was.
No, I don't get that. I think
Not that bad.
there might
That's
have been budget.
overstated.
Here's my honest argument. There may have been budgetary restraints, but those restraints fostered a
The Michael Mann movie. They're always budgetary restraints.
Yeah. Budgetary restraints gave way to, I think, specific tonal creative choices. And again, with the old school look and feel of the film, to me, I never questioned it. The guy flying in the air early in the movie with his car crash, the first driver that dies, and then the climactic scene. I bought it all. I don't know. For me, I was just too swept up in it. It made sense to me and visually. Yeah.
The CGI is like objectively bad, but it did not take me out of the movie, because I think it's incredibly well done. Like otherwise, and like that scene itself, like the build to it,
so
slow build to that moment, like you can what's coming kind of, and you see it unfolding, and you just want to be able to jump in and say stop, please stop, and you can't, and then it happens, and it's happening, and it's devastating. So when it happens, I was devastated. I wasn't like, that CGI is terrible, but the CGI is terrible.
You gotta say it with an Italian accent. That CGI, it's a terrible. Furman, what do you think? No, not Furman.
Furman didn't have it.
Tripp. Sorry, Furman's the bad one.
Furman's the bad one. Guys, this is some of the best driving footage in any movie ever made.
Thank you.
This is insane. This is perfect movie for Michael Mann, because he's so obsessive. Right? It's another obsessive male, but what separates this from all his other ones is we got a female who's cooking on screen. Right. Penelope Cruz not getting nominated. Everybody's talking about Greta and Margot. I think Penelope Cruz is the biggest snub of the year for me.
Yeah.
Like, how does she not get nominated? She's been nominated for far worse films, in my opinion. She is amazing. This is arguably the most deep and intense female lead ever in a Michael Mann movie, by far. So this is top 5 for me. Bumped out. I won't say what it bumped out. You'll hate me, but sorry, James Caan. Yeah. No, I love it. It would pain me not to put in the top 10, but I'm glad it got mentioned by at least 3 of us. Should have been 4 of us.
Yep. Oh well. Tripp, actually, you keep it going, because we've already covered Nick's number 5. So Tripp, your number 4 has been mentioned by one other person. Only one.
Who mentioned it?
Scott did.
Scott did. All right.
Go for
Thanks,
it. Your
buddy.
Number 4.
This would have been heartbreaking if nobody else mentioned this. You know what? I'm a complicated guy. I like my art house films, little animated films, like my action films, but sometimes you just want to have a story that's pretty straight, told well by a pretty competent director, filled with a fantastic cast. My number 4 is The Holdovers. Alexander Payne and Paul Giamatti. Come on, guys. This is the Sideways reunion tour, and I'm here for it.
Blows my mind that Kliner didn't have this. Blows my mind.
Yeah, I thought this might have been like top 3 for you when I first saw it, but this is a Kliner movie, but
Cute movie.
apparently
Dave.
not.
Cute movie.
Yeah. This
What?
is a time
You're
capsule.
such a
This is like
dick.
going right back to the 70s. The music in this film is perfect. The performances, this is like a tripod. If 2 of the 3 legs on the tripod are standing and the third doesn't, it falls. All 3 stand perfectly in this film. A lot of talk about Paul Giamatti, rightfully so. A lot of talk about Davine Joy Randolph. She's going to walk to that award. Dominic Sessa, guys, first time on screen, he holds his own and then some. This guy, watch out. He's going to have a heck of a career. He's going places. The 3 of them together was just magical. Then you have a guy like Alexander Payne, just the style, the way he, just sitting down and seeing the opening title card, right? I'm like, okay, I'm in. He just goes all in. This is a guy with a perfect vision for this film. I loved it. I love Giamatti. Every time he spoke, it was great. This is the perfect role for him. I mean, his father was friggin' president of Yale. So he knows a little bit about academics and curmudgeon old professors, and just the dialogue between him and Dominic Sessa. But then Davine is like the heart and the soul of the film, and she holds it together emotionally. Like, there's so much to love about this film. In a year where there's so many dark, difficult subjects, this is the one that went down the easiest and smoothest for me. And it's probably the one of all the 10 nominees I'll rewatch the most. This will be on my Christmas revisit list. And my family loved it. My friends have loved it. I didn't, other than Kliner, I haven't met a person who didn't like this movie. So you're the first, Adam. You might be the only person in the world.
I gave it 4 stars.
You have no soul.
And you know what? 99% chance Oppenheimer wins Best Picture. But if there's another movie that will slide in, it'll be this one, because it's just so darn lovable. How can you not like it, right? It's gonna be top 3 on a lot of ballots.
Yeah, I just think, like, man, I think there's something about like making a movie with the intention of making people feel good, and also with the intention of like parroting a specific style in a specific time in movies.
Homage piece, yeah.
Yeah, and he just does it so well.
Hal Ashby,
Again, it's one of those movies that took me a second to be like, what's happening? Oh, it's like an homage to like 70s, nice 70s movies. It's very like, it's not a surprising movie. It's not a bunch of twists. It's truly heartfelt. It made me feel really good. The performances are phenomenal. It's a movie I will revisit every Christmas for the rest of my life. It is just one of those movies you can watch with anyone too. You can watch it with anyone. People are gonna love it. I just love this movie. It made me feel good, and movies don't often do that. So,
well, that's the criteria for my top 5. These are the 5 films that made me feel the most, and The Holdovers was one of those 5.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Scott, you can keep us going, because despite calling me names, you and I hold a kinship for a great film that these 2 losers overlooked.
Yeah, I never doubted you, Kliner. I always was with you the whole time. The whole time, you were never anything but right at the top of my list. Number 4, this is the one I think I'm ready to fight on this movie, like I did with Mank, and Babylon also.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
it's Bradley Cooper.
For a minute.
It's Bradley Cooper's Maestro. This is maybe the movie that made me just feel the most, just without. I mean, obviously there's a ton of effort that went into this movie, but man, it made me feel things. It just stirred me up. It made me excited. It made me sad. It made me happy. It made me feel things. It's just the story of Leonard Bernstein, right? But I think it's really insulting, this movie, to call it Oscar bait. I think it's incredibly insulting to someone that is already proven he's an accomplished actor and has 2 now very good, even if you think they're not great movies, very good movies under his belt. To call it Oscar bait is just really insulting to someone that very much, he makes it very clear in his interviews, he's in earnest. guy, he loves movies.
Yeah.
You know, like I find it so ridiculous that people think he's just chasing awards. I think he cares about the awards, but I don't. I think there's much more to it than that. I mean, the scene that everyone's going to talk about, and they should talk about, is him as the Bernstein conducting.
Yeah.
What is it, Mahler? No,
Yeah,
who
the
is it?
resurrection. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that. Gosh,
Yeah.
even if it's not note for note perfect from what Bernstein actually did, like, man, it is so moving. And then he walks off the stage right into the arms of his wife, who has been like, having issues with, and he just breaks down in tears. I don't know how you can watch that and not be like, oh, this is what movies should do. This is, I'm feeling emotions right now about Leonard Bernstein. How am I supposed to say it? What's the correct way? Bernstein. I don't know,
Yeah,
actually.
Stein. I don't. People yelled
Um,
at me when I did it. So
I know. I'm a
whatever you
hypocrite.
do, people will say you're
It's
wrong.
pronounced
But
Shiva, baby.
Yeah. But
Callback
anyway,
joke.
this movie made me feel a lot, and I think it's incredibly well made. Carey Mulligan is unbelievable. Bradley Cooper rules. I think he's better as a director in this movie than he is as an actor, but he's incredible as an actor as well. And I think it's a criminally underrated movie, and I think it's insulting. The discourse around it is insulting to me.
Yeah, I stand in arms with Scott. I mean, no movie made me feel more than Maestro. Both times I watched it. There's just that sequence of scenes, which includes the conducting the resurrection performance. But it's back to back to back, a sequence of scenes that just they crept. Looking back on it, it's incredible how it's constructed, because it puts all the pieces in place for us to just, at least for me, completely collapse and begin to weep as these scenes are unraveling, because again, he's playing to what music does through the movies.
Yes.
Right, is that the music is expressing a multitude of things and years, and that also comes true in other multiple sequences where he's doing Broadway musical performances, where in a traditional biopic there would have to be several written scenes and years covered to communicate what they do communicate in a single dance choreographed sequence, or what they express, what catharsis they express or repentance they express in a single musical performance and conducting. Like, again, like he's using the medium of music to its fullest potential in another medium. Like, it's brilliant and it's genius. And it is earnest and it is sincere, and I can feel it trying hard, but it won me over. And it's not, I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I don't care, because nothing made me feel more than Maestro this year.
Yeah.
I'm not in a fighting mood tonight, so hey,
No,
I'm
it's
just
not.
glad you guys really enjoyed it. I'm glad it made you feel, and I just didn't vibe with it like you guys, but
That
good to
wasn't
hear
a
your
trip.
thoughts. You know,
That wasn't a trip. It's about all the freaking letterbox nerds being like, he just wants an Oscar. Like, okay, dude. Okay.
All right, moving on. We are on to my number 4.
well,
Guys,
he isn't gonna get it.
guys, my number 4 is unique to me. It is Blue. I have a feeling, I worry that I'm the only one who's seen this entire film. The movie, okay, here's here's where number 4, my top 4 are 5-star masterpieces. This is the kind of year that 2023 was. My top 4 films are 5-star masterpieces. And my number 4 is from Spain, Asbestos, or in English, The Beasts. I don't count
I have not heard
Furman.
of this movie.
It is currently available on Mubi, Mubi. Check it out. The Beasts from Spain. This is so Tripp, you haven't seen this?
It had a very brief run at my indie cinema, and I didn't catch it, and I wish I would have, but I will.
Do you
get
have
to
the
it, so.
internet at home?
Yeah.
it has
Also
movie.
doing
Caddy.
my doctorate and
Little
yeah.
caddy from.
Oh, okay. 3-hour Japanese films. Okay, you can have time for a 2.5-hour Spanish film.
Too long.
Asbestos. Okay. Let me just, honestly, guys, this one caught
It
me off
sounds like you're
guard.
saying asbestos, like the
I know.
poison thing in
I'm
the
pronounced. This is
walls
my
that gives you
Spanish.
cancer.
I'm putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable in my Spanish. Okay.
You're
Okay. More
Shailene
seriously,
Shailene Woodley in this speaking Spanish.
more seriously, The Beasts is it really caught me off guard. I just made time for it because I heard it mentioned in passing by very few people, but a few things. I believe it was on the short list, but not nominated for the Oscar. Listen, this is a film that was not in the end what I expected it to be. But upon returning to it and seeing it a second time, I just couldn't help but be swept up and admire its brilliant craft all the more. It's a thrilling and devastating masterpiece. I mean, here's my joke, but I mean it sincerely. Forget a moment, forget the other international feature that involves a French couple and murder. Rodrigo Sorogoyen's Asbestos is the best when it comes to that topic, and it really should have been included in the Oscar race. It's based on real events. This is a slow burn, but it's a taut and intense, that's deeply rooted in just mundane everyday life. That's talking about neighborly interaction. So it's exploring xenophobia and sort of like the economic collapse of finding yourself and people, the working poor. It involves neighborly interactions and arguments and alienation as this French couple is trying to settle in this remote Spanish village, and they're from part of the town and from the exact neighbors. They only experience this great alienation and hostility, and they're finding some connection elsewhere, but it just builds and builds and builds, and it touches on true economic burdens and catastrophe. And it's just so incredibly honest and authentic, because this slow burn of intense thriller that involves murder, it just unfolds in this way that is just so everyday, and it's so brilliant. It's so well written that you actually, in a very, very pivotal scene, one of the best performed scenes of the years in terms of acting, you sympathize with the antagonists in the scene because they explain their motivations and the hardship that they've lived with their entire life, and why they are refusing to embrace these outsiders to their village. And it's and the two male leads in this film, Denis Merchette and Louis Zahara, I mean, these guys their faces are made for cinema. I mean, they're electric. You've never seen faces like this. In the third act too, we've mentioned films that had unique third acts a few times. This one really takes a real unexpected emotional turn in the third act, and but it's devastating and it's brilliant. And oh my word, there's a line in the final 5 minutes, I think, again, weeping, just like it's to know what it was all building toward. Yeah, just incredible film. Please check it out. The Beasts, incredible masterpiece from Spain. That's my number.
I will not see this movie.
This year's Drive My Car, brought to you by Scott.
Yeah, seriously.
I have so many movies to watch. I'm just never gonna get to this movie.
All right.
All right.
Is it my turn?
Oh, after that passionate appeal, he will not watch this movie. I will watch this movie.
Furman watched 30 minutes, so that's.
How was the first ever? Hey, in defense of this movie, Adam, I'm gonna out Nick here. A couple weeks ago, Nick was messaging me. He's watching 1001. He's like, "Does this movie get any better? I can't get through it." And then it makes his top 15. So,
oh my word!
That's true. It did happen.
Ridiculous behavior. All right. Moving on. Furman, why don't you briefly tell us what your number 4 is?
Okay, so it's fascinating that your number 4 was asbestos, because mine is actually black mold. It's really crazy. I don't.
Put him boom.
Bear? What?
No, okay, sorry. I just had to get that out. My number 4, I'm actually freaking stoked that I don't have it tops. It's we're coming back to it, and that's All of Us Strangers.
Okay, awesome. That will come back around to All of Us Strangers. Okay, now we are in our top 3,
Let's go.
and all of our top 3s will
Speed round.
require
No, I'm just kidding.
require some discussion.
Okay.
So Tripp, why don't you hit us off with your number 3, which has been mentioned by one other person.
I'm very happy to, and I'm assuming, hoping
Yeah,
that the only reason this is a 4-way crossover is because 2 of us haven't seen this. Because
Don't
I
have
really
that.
think Scott and Adam would eat this movie up, pun intended. I was holding my cards close to the chest this year.
Yeah.
If you go on my letterbox, I haven't given anything 5 stars, but these top 3 I will be changing to 5 stars because they are 5-star masterpieces. This is the film that France put forward as their selection and didn't even get an international feature nomination. It's been mentioned by Nick. It's called The Taste of Things. And this, I will go on record saying this is the best food themed movie that I've ever seen. I know there's been plenty, but Bet's Feast walks, so this movie could run. This movie is absolutely incredible. It's directed with such tenderness and care and precision. Tran Anh Hung is a director who is an auteur of the highest regard. It stars Benoit Magimel and Juliette Binoche. It's set in France in the late 1800s, and in the film kind of follows their life of Dodin. He's the chef living with his personal cook and his love interest, Eugenie. You know, they share a history of gastronomy and they share a history of love, but Eugenie refuses to marry him. So the food lover decides to do something he has never done before, cook a lavish meal for her. That's the synopsis in brief of the movie, but there's so much more to it. The first half hour of this film, I was watching this at my screening at my local festival. There were audible oohs and ahs and gasps. Literally, I was drooling watching the food preparation on screen for the first half hour plus of this film. I've never seen anything like it. This was my cinema experience of the year watching this movie. Juliette Binoche is gold. I love her and everything. She would have been a great wild card best supporting nomination as well in this film. But it's a love story. It's not just about the food preparation. They call them artists, and they're preparing these meals, these lavish meals for their friends. And it's really about how art and love for another can be expressed not only through the eating of meals together, but through the act of preparing meals for one another. And what makes this movie even more interesting is that the 2 leads actually had a relationship. They had a daughter together. They were together. They had a nasty breakup, and here they are coming together to act in this very vulnerable, tender role together. And they said it's kind of a gift to their daughter. And so this movie is incredible. I just want to see it again with my wife, and she adored it as well. She's literally right now on a plane to France. And so it was perfect timing for her to see this movie this weekend. So this is the first of 3 5-star films for me this year. Check it out when you have a chance, widely available. Scott, Adam, I really think you guys will love it. Nick, you want to add to that?
Just briefly, I mean, I'm like not the foodie, those 2 are, and that I think it speaks to how incredible this film was that I was like still really enraptured because like one, the cinematography is unreal. Like how the cinematography is not nominated in this movie blows my mind.
Nice.
And 2, like it really does show like the act of love that is food preparation for someone else. Like that there's and so I was swept up, like that's what kind of blew me away is that there's a real romance going on here. Like it's not unrequited love, but it's adjacent because like he's trying to get to hold her down, get her, and she's kind of resisting, and there's some of her own autonomy there. And anyway, it's it's a treat, man. Like I understand why it was selected to there are good reasons, I'd say. So
Yeah,
that's
it
awesome.
should have been nominated for sure. Sean Fennessy, who hosts the Big Picture podcast, he said this is one of the best films he's seen in the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
that says a
I'm
lot
fairly
too. He goes a
certain.
lot of weight. Yeah.
I'm fairly certain this movie doesn't exist. So I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't think it exists. So
So
It's
hard
not
to see,
playing
man.
around you? Wow, I thought it'd be playing in Philly
it was
right
in
now.
theaters like very briefly in
Yeah,
like
exactly.
maybe one theater.
I know. I think I caught it in like 10 days.
All right. Taste of Things. I look forward to seeing it as well. But Scott, you now get to take the lead with your number 3 with another 4-way crossover. So take it away.
I think before I say anything, I think this director is maybe one of the like smartest auteurs that we have. Like, I think he's just like an absolute stone cold genius. The movie is The Zone of Interest. Jonathan Glazer is the director. And I knew what this movie was going to be like in my mind. I had heard about what this movie was going to be like before I went to see it, and I was not prepared for what I actually watched. The emotions that this movie evoked in me through the like absolute mundanity of evil was it, man. It was like deeply impactful. I mean, for those people that don't know, The Zone of Interest is about the caretakers basically of Auschwitz, like the leader of Auschwitz and his family, and them just trying to like live their lives, and just watching them casually live their lives next door to Auschwitz is one of the most maddening things you will ever see. I don't know how to describe what this movie, the rage that this movie made me feel at times, and the more that Glazer tries to get you to empathize with the Germans, like he's almost poking you to he's like, I dare you to empathize with these people because they're living just normal lives and they have children, and they're throwing birthday parties, and they're trying to decide where to live and what the next move is for them, and they're dealing with job stuff. It's just stuff that all of us deal with, but the guy is running Auschwitz. It's truly horrifying. It's impossible to take your eyes off of. The performances are amazing. The sound design is like otherworldly. The cinematography is masterful. It's an incredible piece of art. I think the thing that holds it back from being higher for me is that I don't know if I ever want to watch this movie again.
Yeah. That's how I felt the first time walking out, was that's Jonathan Glazer's, maybe with one film as an exception to this, that of his films, starring Ben Kingsley, that I love, but he's the master of a film. He makes films that you might not want to watch again, but you will never forget. Now I did revisit it, and it's just, this film shouldn't hold your attention, and it somehow does. And I've heard critics that we all listen to are like that it didn't work for them, and it's kind of frustrating to listen to them describe that. But because to me, I can't look away. I can't stop observing every corner of the frame to understand what's going on, and it's not even like, yes, I'm admiring the craft of it, but it's also like, you want to shake them because you're observing the little sounds or little hints in the corners of the screen, and you're just like, it's right there. And
and then he will foreground everyone, like there are a couple moments where he foregrounds the horror,
Yes.
but he never shows it to you.
Right.
He like dwells on it and makes you feel immersed in it, but he doesn't show it to you. Like, it's an incredible amount of restraint from Glazer as well, not to make it it could be really easily like voyeuristic in a way, and he never gives that to you, and it's almost more horrifying.
Well, in a way, it is voyeuristic, but not in that sense, right? I mean, even
Yeah.
the ending, not to spoil it, but it brings it back to modern times and how we,
Right.
even today,
Right.
tend to sanitize things and romanticize things and dumb it down, right? I mean, it's interesting. There's so much in this film. This should be in a museum. This should be shown. I told my wife, like, this is one you might want to consider showing to your history class in high school when she teaches that course. Good conversation starter. Yeah. Sorry, Nick, I cut you off there.
Yeah, no, I think I still have my thought. It's that, like, all of the audiovisual stuff, like all the visuals, all of the choices, like the blocking to only show you certain aspects of the yard, all of that, it's all about shrinking time, right? Like, it's all about taking the past and modernizing it in such a way that you cannot escape it as like a current reality. And so I think that makes it all the more powerful. And then I think I lost my other thought. Yeah, I was just pretty blown away by that aspect of it.
Do we all see this in theaters?
I did.
Yeah, maybe Scott didn't.
No,
No,
This
you
was
you made a
nuts,
comment.
man.
That's right, you
no,
didn't.
The opening title card and the sound design
Yeah.
and this was freaking nuts, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Off the
that's what I was
charts.
gonna say. Like he goes. It's like him saying, "There's no way I can show you how horrible this truly is. You've seen it in a million movies, so I'm just not going to show you at all." And it's actually like, whoa, like it actually messes with your mind. That's why, like, all the beef over Greta, most people are like, well, they should have kicked out Glazer. I'm like, to me, this is like the at least the top 2 directorial visions I've seen this year. Like,
Yeah, it's incredibly creative. Yeah, it's incredibly creative, and like, how did
right.
he think to do this? And how did he? I mean, not only how did he think to do this, but how did he realize that this could be something that would hold people's attention? Like, to me, if you just think of like this conceptually, you're like, oh, this won't work as a motion picture, like
Right.
as a feature film, like that could never work, and it works, and it is devastating, truly devastating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the the use of the thermal imaging too.
Oh
Didn't
yeah.
talk about that.
All right.
But that was pretty incredible. All right, we could go on and on, but I know we got to keep moving.
So we all agree the zone of interest is in our tops and top 10. So one of the best of the year. Now I'm gonna hold my number 3 because I want Furman to keep the good times going and bring it home with one other film of similar themes that was mentioned once before. So we'll come back to me in a second, but Furman, why don't you give us the lead on your number 3?
This is where we should fight with them for not having this one, eh, Furman?
Yeah. Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese, ever heard of him? Wait, we're the only 2 that have him?
Yeah, that is insane to me.
I
So
did not see the film.
Scott had a scheduled 3-hour block of time on Sunday he decided not to use to watch this film.
Yeah, he's not a big
I
Scorsese
spent time
fan.
with my fiance cultivating a healthy and loving relationship.
Did you poison her teeth?
I'll get into it. I allowed this one to slip a little bit. This is literally my number 16. But Furman, you and Tripp, just let's
lead off, Furman.
Let's
Let it
talk
cook.
about
Okay.
this, break this down.
Let it cook.
Okay, so I think this is an amazing work in several regards. One, I think it's incredible what he chose to do with the book. Instead of telling a story like very FBI forward about capturing these outlaws and sort of stuff, he shifted everything and rewrote it as a love story between this dolt and played by Leo and is it the Osage, right? That are that are there and use that as the framework to sort of spin everything going forward. And then the third act is when you start to see that stuff come in. So I think that directorial choice is remarkable. I think this is a sneaky, like Mount Rushmore De Niro performance because he's playing the sinister guy he is in Casino and stuff, but it's way more like avuncular and like like I said, like a daddy warbucks. Like, he's playing the philanthropist, but really is doing all this stuff. It's right in front of you. Scorsese's doing all of the Goodfellas, like all of the mobby stuff, but it's in this entirely different setting. And then I think that it's it's not my favorite ending of the year, but it's way the heck up there. I think the choice he makes, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a lot like Glazer's choice. It's a lot like Glazer's choice in saying, I didn't choose to show you anything or nothing, but what I chose to show you is the best I could do. And here's how. And I just think that it's a remarkable ending. I love it. And for a 3.5-hour movie, and I'm the slow film guy, it moves. To me, it just moves.
Yep.
So I have no beef with its length at all.
Yep. No, I agree with everything you've said, Nick. One thing I really appreciated about one of the many things really appreciated about this movie, and Scorsese was taking a lot of hits. Well, why are you a white man telling this story? Why are you making this story? And he walks that fine line of bringing his sweet spot into this. like the brutality of violence that he's known for in his gangster
Right.
films. There's some of that here, but he has such a sensitivity. Like just reading behind the scenes, like the consultations he had with the Osage leaders, he was very delicate and sensitive to make a movie that was honoring and telling the story rightly. Not trying to pretend he's telling it from a different perspective, telling it from his own perspective of being very culturally sensitive. And that's a fine line to walk. And I think he really pulls that off. I think Leo's great. Talked about De Niro. I thought Leo should have been nominated. This is one
He
of
should have.
his better performances,
Absolutely.
I think.
Yeah.
But Lily, my goodness. I mean, what
Yeah.
she's able to do in this, not simply with what she's getting, she's off screen for large lengths of time, but every moment that she is on screen, it is absolute gold. And, if she wins the Best Actress award, it won't be just a tokenism award. It'll be well deserved. I'll
Right.
be very happy if either her or Emma Stone win. But yeah, I agree with you. 3.5 hours is a put off for a lot of people. Maybe some people watching haven't watched it for that reason. You won't be watching your clock throughout this movie. I was in theater leaning forward most of the film. Now there are a couple cameo performances, a couple people that show up near the end that maybe don't know what movie they're in.
Yeah.
In the last
Right.
hour of the film. That's my only
Right.
quibble with the movie, I think, but it's a
Right.
minor quibble. But I think history will smile well on this, and I think this will be in or close to the top 5 Scorsese when people look back at this film, and
I
that's
think
high
It,
praise.
I think Killers of the Flower Moon, in the eyes of history, I hope and pray, but I think the effects are already seen. It will play a very culturally catalytic role
Mhm.
Yeah.
in America. For Tripp and I in Canada, it's a very different context in terms of the
Sure.
conversation and responsibility for Indigenous relations and recounting and reconciling with the history of our land. In America, I know there are still many strides to be taken, and I really see this film and its power
So important.
to help really move the dial and create that space in that and that platform for those conversations to take place, which I'm really excited about. Which again, the ending speaks to that, in my opinion, because there's real humility in the
yeah,
ending,
exactly.
and it's
Humility is
deeply
the right word.
moving
Right.
in taking, and Scorsese himself taking account and taking responsibility for,
Right.
and as humbly as he can artistically, just saying this is the best I could do. And I think it's profound. There are other choices in the film that, again, just like, oh, I wasn't quite sure, or it took me out of it. But again, it's such an important film. I'll say when I rewatched it, it was a perfect like two-nighter, like half and half.
Yeah.
So just for people who feel it is daunting, it is very accessible, especially in that way. But yeah, so Nick, you had it, Killers of the Flower Moon at your number 3.
Right.
Right.
Tripp, you had it a little bit lower, but still
Number
top 10.
6.
So
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. I'm gonna lighten the mood a little bit, guys. Okay. I'm gonna try. I thought we would do those two. My number 3. I don't know. If I'm sure someone has seen this. I am shocked that I stand alone on this hill, but another 5-star masterpiece. This time it's coming from Finland.
Yeah, I
Uh,
knew it.
who doesn't like an 80-minute masterpiece, guys? Fallen Leaves. What's wrong with you?
Oh yeah.
Again, I'm
Fallen
pretty sure that movie doesn't exist.
Scott.
Some movie.
Mubi. It's
I have
on
like
your TV.
73 freaking streaming.
On your TV, and it's a free subscription that you can get if you use a certain email or a new email address. Just saying. Fallen Leaves is incredible. And again, this is another one that took me by surprise. I was excited to watch it. I heard great things. But hey, I mean, and Tripp, you already called out my favorite word. This is a whimsical film. I love wry humor and whimsical tone and storytelling. That Fallen Leaves is a sweet and tender, frequently funny tale of love and life in a very tragic world. It's a very unique, very bizarre, unique, idiosyncratic story of two very lonely people who cross paths in their own little unique world, unique corner of the world in Finland. Director Aki Kaurismäki has such his tone is so specific. It's like it's almost impossible to explain or articulate. It like stands on the border of more broader, more louder expressions of wry and whimsy, but he walks this fine line where we never quite leave the real world because the radio is constantly playing and telling us about
Yeah.
the war in Ukraine, and we're
Yes.
following the working poor and their day-to-day life, the simplicity of their lives and the hardship of their lives. But then the focus of it, the heart of it, is just these two people falling in love and whether or not they're willing to compromise and sacrifice in order to make a life together. But it's done with such wry, what's the word I'm looking for, like stone faced,
Deadpan.
deadpan
Like
humor.
Jim Jarmusch.
Yeah.
It's all deadpan. Yeah.
And there's all these Jim Jarmusch pulls and
Yeah.
homages, which that spoke to me because I fell in love with Jarmusch in college. Furman actually, like that I exposed to all his works, and anyways, and that's what Kaurismäki was paying homage to through this slightly surreal and yet magical movie. So again, 80 minutes, can't recommend it enough.
Good.
Fallen Leaves, just get your free subscription of mubi.movie.com and please watch Fallen Leaves. That's my number 3.
It's
I'll
a good
watch
choice. Just fell out mine. Scott, you're gonna love this movie.
I'm
Yeah,
not
this is a good-
watching
this is a total Scott movie.
All right,
It is.
Right, Nick?
I'm excited
Yeah.
about this one. I'm excited about
Yeah.
this one. I will not watch the asbestos movie. I don't.
Watch
But
this
I'll
one.
watch this one.
That theater scene is one of the best of the year, eh, Kliner?
Yeah, oh my word, it's so funny.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's a good flick. I liked it.
yeah, I'll try to convince Scott later off screen about yeah, anyways, we'll move on. Okay, let's watch that clock, but let's move on. We can fly past here because we're gonna keep moving, but Tripp and Scott are tied for their number 2. So guys, what's your number 2?
Climactic.
go ahead.
It's yellow.
Yeah, you're
On 3, Scott. 1, 2, 3.
Past
Past lives.
Oh.
they
I was
both
getting worried. It hadn't got a mention yet. I'm like, oh
I
my
know,
goodness.
it had not
Oh, wait,
been
it's
mentioned.
yellow. So
Past lives, Scott and Tripp both have a number 2, but it's gonna come back around shortly. So
it was
Oh.
1 till the 11th hour.
all right, I'm gonna try win Scott over. We're back to me already. My number 3. I'm gonna try and win Scott over one more time.
Wait, number 2, right?
With my number 2. Yeah,
Okay.
we're on our number 2, but I'm gonna try win. I'm saying this is my 3rd time mentioning a film that Scott maybe hasn't heard of or doesn't know it exists.
I see.
But my number 2 has at least been mentioned by one other person, and it is yet another 5-star masterpiece. This time from Germany. Yeah, it's 5-star masterpiece that Nick has mentioned. A Fire.
Oh, yeah.
The alternate title, Scott, this will win you right over. The alternate title to this film is The Asshole.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Scott,
Listen,
Scott,
Petzl,
listen,
baby.
my
I've been a
my
Christian
review,
Petzl fan for a long time.
Yeah.
Never got to you.
my
Good one.
review is just, I'm just speaking to Scott, guys. Okay, Scott, you will see yourself in this film.
How
all right,
dare you? How dare you?
and I say that proudly and honestly because I saw myself in this film.
Yeah.
A Fire is a film I didn't care about any character more all year long until I watched this film. I didn't make a note about the character's name. Now I'm going to forget. What's the lead?
It's Leon.
Thank you.
Leon is
Leon
Tony
is our
Stewart.
protagonist. He's a 20-something, 30-something little narcissistic prick.
Yeah.
And he is an artist with a vision. He's a writer, and no one understands him. And he's gonna tell his story his way. And people's notes and criticism, well, they just miss the point of his artistry and his genius. He is on a vacation. Well, he's not on a vacation. He's on a work retreat with a friend, and and it's just he's just misunderstood, but he's so self-involved. He's so apathetic towards the needs of others, and yet you can't help but smile and laugh and somehow sympathize, if not empathize, with this lucky loser, because he meets a wonderful girl who sees his potential, somehow sees his humanity despite his poor social skills, making lovely little dinner parties painfully awkward and calling people out and being rude. And all of that interior work is made manifest in the exterior because the world around them is literally on fire. And it's an apocalyptic internal journey in which, and this is almost too real for some people in parts of the world, but the wildfires are raging in that part of the world. The wildfires are in the summertime are running across the countryside and ruining lives and homes. And here these 20-30 somethings are on their little work retreat, artistic retreat, and the world around them is burning. And it's all just this beautiful apocalyptic metaphor for the internal awakening that Leon is working through. And just incredibly well written. Again, so funny and sweet, but you're so angry at Leon at times, and then you're like, dude, just make one different choice in your life. Just say one word differently, and people might actually understand you or accept you or care about you. And again, he's so self-involved, he doesn't even realize his own editor has cancer and is facing the end of his life. And anyways, it just amazing accomplishment. I'm looking forward to returning to A Fire. But Furman, you also mentioned it, so sorry, what else do you have to say?
Well, you hit everything pretty much. I mean, you said in your review, you said it's the journey from narcissism to apocalyptic awakening. That's it, man. That's why they give you the press credentials. That's that's the way to, Paula Beer, we didn't mention her. She's unreal in this. She's also in Transit, Scotty. I know you love that Petzold flick. The power of blunt words from an attractive female, that's what this is about. And I just couldn't get over how simultaneously unlikable he is as a protagonist, and yet how much I could relate to him. It's like a wannabe writer who's insecure. I'm like, oh man, this is hitting a little too close to home for like half of this movie. But yeah, it's like you want to hate this guy, but you just keep rooting for him to like finally, like you said, just you don't have to take the whole leap. Just take one step in the right direction, and then this incredibly moving final scene. Like that's the only thing I'll say. Just a scene that gripped me. So you laugh, you're gripped. It's the kind of thing that like it's like an Eric Romer flick. Like they don't make these in the States very much, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. So that's A Fire. You find it
Scott,
on the Criterion channel.
Yes, it's on Criterion channel, which I know Scott has. So get on it. I will say, you said Michelle Williams and Kelly Reichardt. Williams and Reichardt. Well, Paula Beer and Petzold, this is their third together. They did one in 2020 called Undine. And basically he's making 4 films: Earth, Wind, Fire, and Water.
Right.
So those are going to be the elements. So
he's going to call it Avatar: The Last Airbender. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
So this is 2 of 4. So something related to air and earth.
I love that we are taking Scott to task because he's complaining about the access of films, and we keep pointing out movies that are in his home on his TV right now.
I'm not saying that I have watched enough movies this year. I'm just saying, can we release 2023 movies in 2023? Is that like a possibility?
I'm totally with you on this.
They're on your TV right now. They're on your TV. Okay.
I like to taste some things, for instance.
All right. Furman is gonna carry us forward with another 4-way crossover and his number 2. So let's lead the discussion there on your number 2, Furman.
Let's go, Furman. Let's do this.
Finally, my number 2 is Anatomy of a Fall.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I do this thing every year where it's like best and favorite. And like, if you go back through our lists, I'm a complete and utter hypocrite because sometimes I have best number 2 and favorite number 1.
Yeah, same here.
I think the best film of this year to me overall, top to bottom, was probably Anatomy of a Fall. My best film, my favorite film, you'll hear at number 1. But okay, so like, I guess the way I'll talk about this, because we already talked about how great the screenplay is. like sometimes when you're talking to people who aren't film heads, they're like, what does a director do? You know? And it's like, oh, well, they make decisions about shots. And they're like, I thought that was the cinematographer. And it's like, well, no, but they also help shape the editing. It's like, I thought that was the editor. And it's like, well, yeah, but there's writing on stage. I thought that was the screenwriter. And then you get down to it, and it's like, what do they actually do? Right. And they're kind of guiding the whole project. That's the whole auteur thought. So
They're directing it.
This movie, well played, well played. This movie is like, I think, like Tripp said to me after, he's like, she directed the living shit out of this movie. And like that, this is the one I would point to, be like, this decision, that decision, that decision, like that's directing. When you're showing a scene overhead, but you have the eyes visually on the boy processing, when you cut between a conflict and people's reactions, like when you make choices about how you run your courtroom, like all of those things, it's just an unbelievable feat of directing, I think. And it's like 2.5 hours, it flies. And to me, it just like, remember all the 90s rush of courtroom dramas, like all of the Grisham stuff and all the stuff in the States. Like this one, to me, just blows those away. Like it's doing the same kind of things, and it's even hinting at the intrigue. Like, is she gonna hook up? Is Schuler gonna hook up with that lawyer? And then they're like, nah, let's just go over here to this thing. And there's all this stuff going on. But incredibly written, always moved, really awesome performances. It's a powerhouse performance by Hewler. But I just like people that had, again, the whole Greta directing thing. Like, I'm like, you're going to take Justin Trier out of this? Like, to me, it's like just an unreal feat of direction. So
Yeah.
That's my argument. Go ahead. Cook.
Sandra Hüller. This is my favorite performance of the year. As much as I love Gladstone and Stone and others, what she's doing in this film, 2 languages, first of all, and she flawlessly shifts. She learned French for this film, apparently, which is mind-blowing.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Insane.
Holy crap.
I mean,
Really?
she just cooks. The fight scene, when they listen to it in the courtroom, that is like probably the scene of the year, for me. It's just insane. The child acting is off the charts in this movie. Let's not forget the boy actor in this. Some of the best child acting I've seen in years. And we haven't even talked about the 4-legged actor, the dog. I don't know how to even pull off some of these magical scenes with the dog. Like,
Dog of the year.
I'm hoping no dogs were harmed in the making of this movie. This dog, Messi, is now famous. It's absolutely a marvelous film. I've been to France once. I want to go back. And instead of seeing the Eiffel Tower, I want to get a bag of popcorn and sneak in the back of a French courtroom and just watch them cook. French courtrooms are insane. This is the second year in a row we've been treated to a French courtroom drama. This one's off the rails. They're just pulling out books and reading literature and just going. Everybody can chime in when they want. It's just wild.
I just can't believe that's actually how it is. But
so many Bergman-esque close-ups in this movie too are just absolutely insane. Or close-ups, kind of like an Oppenheimer, is a close-up and you see stuff happening over the shoulder with the other characters. Like, the direction is nuts. I mean, that's what I told Firm. This is why I'll never get press credentials, because my line was, she directed the shit out of this movie. There's my review. Like, Triet, best director nominee, fantastic.
And I think we can all agree. Yeah, I think we can all agree that the most important thing about this movie is that she definitely did it. She definitely killed her husband. I think that's the point that you really want to take away from the movie, is that she did it, for sure.
She did it.
Yeah.
But that's not the point at all.
I know, I'm kidding.
No.
Yeah, you're right.
Not everybody watching
talk
will
about
get that. It's not really about did she do it or not. It's about the tragedy and the pain of how a relationship can just crumble over the years. And we see the final blow, literally, whether it was a jump, a push, or a fall, we don't know. It leaves it ambiguous. But the pain of this movie is seeing how a relationship can just spiral to that point over many, many years when a tragedy happens in their life. So, yeah, I thought it was a masterclass, and glad we get to talk about it.
She did it.
I don't know.
50 Cent.
That prosecutor was awesome too.
Oh yeah, the prosecutor.
Yeah, prosecutor and 50 Cent, the stars of the film.
50 Cent.
The best
Okay.
line in the movie, the crosses them, like they're talking about that film, Pimp, and they're like, "Oh, it's a
Yeah.
misogynistic song," and then
Yeah,
the professor is like, "But it was an instrumental version."
Yeah.
To rebuttal.
good.
Oh, it was great.
Oh yeah, it's like a steel drum. Yeah,
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, Anatomy of Fall, another four-way crossover, incredible film, best
Cool.
screenplay of the year.
Vive la France.
And,
Two
yeah,
amazing films out of France this year.
Trip, we want you to keep cooking because we have reached our number ones. We are at number one, guys, and yeah, Trip's number one is another film that no one's heard of. So here we go. Here we go. Take the floor.
Also on Criterion.
It
All right,
is
guys.
on Criterion. It's a great film.
Here's the deal. Thank you. This is a great film. So perhaps even better than 9 Days.
Stop it. Cut, edit,
Not-
edit that
not-
out.
Not quite as good as
Oh, yeah.
After Sun, but still
Alright.
worthy of my number one spot. We've done it, guys. We've reached the height, the pinnacle, the apex of the mountain. We're at number one, and appropriately, my number one film, which is on Criterion, Scott, is an Italian film called The Eight Mountains.
Wow.
Up until the 11th hour, Past Lives was in that spot. Furman, you gave me the courage to put this at number one. I was agonizing over all my top five in wrestling. And he's like, just go with your heart, man. Just go with your gut. And so I went with my gut and I put this at number one. I want to dedicate this film to you three guys because this is a beautiful, tender film about male friendship. And so if I can just be real, like I really appreciated three of you guys and just, I don't know, the conversations that we've had during the pandemic every day, just laughing, checking in, talking about sports or films or faith or whatever. It's been really meaningful to me. And so I was watching this film, I was thinking about all the people in my life, including you three guys, who've just been so important in my life. And this is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. The cinematography of this film, the landscape, it's set in the Italian Alps, and it spans like 4 decades of friendship between these two friends who live in this small village. They form a friendship. So I was thinking of the movie Close that came out last year, the childhood friendship movie. But then they get disconnected. Not one of them doesn't die, but then they get reconnected later on. And there's so many themes that were rich to me. This is like my maestro. This is my maestro. Scott, you said you felt more in that movie than anything else. Felt so much in this. It explores relationships between fathers and sons, and my next therapist appointment, I'll be revisiting that relationship in my life. It explores insecurity for not measuring up in the eyes of your parents, or when someone can fill in as sort of a surrogate son when you're absent from your family. There's so much here. The mountains serve as a metaphor for a place where we maybe feel comfortable, or maybe we feel safe, or a place where we can hide from the world and our purpose in the world and exploring beyond our comfort zones. There's just so much richness in this film. The first time I saw it, I wept at the end of it. The music by the folk musician Daniel Norgren. There's just such poignant moments where the folk music comes in and out of the film, and it's a joy to behold. I don't know how they shot some of these scenes just so poignantly in the mountains in all 4 seasons. It's on Criterion. It's called The Eight Mountains. You guys haven't seen it, or Kliner, you saw it, right? You thought it was decent.
Yeah,
Furman, you haven't seen it yet, eh? Yeah.
I have not. No.
Check
I
it
have
out.
not
You
seen it.
probably won't. I'm probably overselling it. You probably won't like it as much as I did, but it really spoke to me, and I'm hoping more people will view this one.
It is a true Trip pick. Very mal, but it is also a beautiful and a moving film. It is and epic beards. So
Yes.
Good beard.
yeah,
Epic beards.
Scott's all over it.
Love a good beard.
All right.
So
Speaking
I'll
of
just
Scott-
can I just close? Can I close with this? Peter Bradshaw over at the Guardian. He basically says The Eight Mountains is a movie with air in its lungs and love in its heart, and that's a really great way to sum up this movie. So it's my number one.
Okay.
Did it.
And speaking of epic beards and brotherly love, Scott is gonna bring us home with his number one, which has been mentioned by one other person, and take it away.
Yeah, it's Andrew Haig's All of Us Strangers.
Let's go.
Man,
Not coming.
this it's my only 5-star movie of the year. Man, this movie is just beautiful. I think what I thought of after I watched it was how it almost felt like you were watching the lead character's like therapy session, but like you could see it, like he was having these conversations in therapy with his therapist, but you could see the images of this like trauma. Like it's such a real portrayal of like trauma and what you would say to the people close to you if you had a chance to say it. I think, I mean, it's a really hard movie to describe the plot of, but Andrew Scott plays a character that meets another, I can't remember the characters' names, it's terrible. But these two young men meet each other, they fall in love, and during that same period of time, he's going to meet his parents at their house. And when he goes to meet his parents at their house, they're young. They're his age, basically. They're the age that they were when they died, which he was 11 years old when they died.
Right.
It's a dreamlike movie. None of it really fits together. If you're trying to like analyze the plot, you're not watching it the right way. To be honest, you're just not. Like it just doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. It's some of the most powerful dialogue in a movie that I've seen in quite a long time. I think Andrew Scott is like a genius. I think he's continuing to be a revelation, but he's just an incredible actor. I don't know. It just, I think as someone that has a complicated relationship with my own parents, I think the idea of being able to speak to your parents, it's at your like at the same age you are, or even younger. Like if you could go back, if I could go now and talk to my parents when they were 30, and just realize that they have their own stuff, they have their own hangups, they have their own issues, they have their own parents, they have, there's
Right.
all this stuff that influences the way we behave and the way our parents treat us. And like generational trauma is so real. This movie was just deeply powerful, and I haven't even mentioned Paul Mescal, who I think is just one of the finest young actors we have, and him and Andrew Scott's chemistry is just off the charts. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is weird to say because I am a straight man, but their scenes together are electric. Like their love scenes are electric. You can feel the chemistry that these two have with each other. I just thought it was really beautiful and like a really interesting movie about loneliness and how loneliness is for sure like the central theme, but like how we turn
Right.
out the way that we do. I love this movie. It reminded me a lot of how I felt about Come On, Come On from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, like that's why I think I even said, I was like, dude, you got to see this. You're gonna love this because it reminded me of Come On, Come On, but it got me in a way that Come On, Come On didn't. Like where for whatever reason, I was just like completely on this one's wavelength, and I don't know. I just think like I don't even know where to start. Like you said it all, man. Like the four lead performances are all
Only
just
4 people in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the film it's shot like almost post-apocalyptic. Like everything
Mhm.
is focused on him. He's in this high rise, but there's no one else. And the cityscapes, he rides the train, but the camera's on him. I mean, and yet he's going through this journey. And like you said, it's like there's definitely this whole like 90s like gay man who grew up and kind of his parents, like he has a scene with Claire Foy where it's like how to really out himself, and but I identified with this idea of like longing and isolation for
Mm.
connection, for the distance between us and our parents. Jason and I were talking about how like there's some real After Sun crossover
Mhm.
with like
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
seeing our parents as human beings rather than the people that just hurt us, like that we're doing the same things to our kids to an extent. And yeah, like the magical realism never took me out of it. I could see how there's a swing at the end that I think could hurt. It certainly hurt one guy in this group's opinion. But because I was there on the rest of it, it didn't take me out of it. I was willing to go with the ghostly Like it's about using trauma. It's like, how do we approach trauma, right? Like, oh, we'll just use these like ghost and dream like reveries. I'm like, what a brilliant idea, you know?
Yeah.
So
I just think structurally it's so creative and yeah, it's so like ineffable. Like
yes.
I don't even know how he came up with putting this structurally, how he came up with this. But
And I mean, he shot it in his childhood home. Like that's where they
yeah,
shot
dude,
it.
yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
love it. I
excited
love it
to
too.
revisit this and hopefully appreciate it more. But I'll just say to Scott's point, I think the thing that lost me with the ending was because of what Scott said. I was so wrapped up in their relationship and their chemistry that when it became something else, I was bummed out.
Yeah, I get it.
And because I was kind of clinging to that as
So was I. I was bummed out
as
too.
the emotional anchor of the story.
Yeah.
And so anyways, but you know, again, knowing what it is and how it's structured, hopefully I'll be able to engage it. But it's anyway, Andrew Scott, good grief, people give him all the awards
Yeah.
and
He's
Yeah.
Paul
incredible.
Mescal, and yeah, great. So
No, it was clearly inspired by Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
It's all a big death dream. It's all a death dream from start to finish.
yeah,
Totally.
okay, spoilers.
A lot of crazy
Uh,
action.
That's awesome. Awesome. Good. All right. Thanks, guys.
Good
That's
choice.
that's number one. Okay, this is it, guys.
Tie. You guys got tie, don't
We
you?
are down to our final film. Furman, you and I,
Oh,
yeah. Furman, you and I, we share our number one, another
Our-
5-star masterpiece. So Furman, you take it away. What is our shared and correct number one?
wait, so you and I had it 1 and those
We
two
had it
had it
too.
2.
Yeah.
So
So,
the
I
collective-
mean,
Okay.
Nice.
consensus,
And it was
guys.
almost one for me. Yeah.
1 and
I'm
2.
so
I love it.
It's
I love it.
It's Celine Song's Past Lives, man.
Woo!
Woo.
What a deeply
Nice.
underrated movie this has become.
Oh my gosh,
I
this is
know,
awesome. This is so cool that we all had it so high. I'm just not going to say much because I want to hear from you guys.
I don't think this has ever happened. Have we ever had a movie that's been all in the top 2? That's wild.
I mean, I just think this movie, like, okay, here we go. Confession time. I'm a hopeless romantic. I am.
What?
And this movie hits that so freaking hard that I almost can't even stand under the weight of it. Like the idea of the one who got away, or pursuing the love you could have versus the safety of the one you're with, and the fact that you've got 3 actors, but they're also empathetic. Like you can empathize with Magar's performances just as good as the leads. And
But the
man.
punchline to what you're saying is they're all grown-ups in the end.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
isn't
exactly.
rom-com Hallmark nonsense. This
Yeah.
is real human beings truly in love, torn in different directions, truly exploring what commitment is. And I found nothing more satisfying this year than
Yeah, that's
every
awesome.
time I watch Past Lives.
So good.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So good.
beautiful. Yeah, I mean, the final shot is my favorite final shot of the year.
Yeah,
Yes.
me too.
Me
I
too.
think the way it, I think the way that it portrays, it almost seems bigger than like the one who got away, because it also represents something she left behind culturally by leaving a different country and coming to a
Yeah.
new country. I think there's a line that always that has stuck with me, even though I've only seen it once and it was almost a year ago now, is that they're talking at the end. The 2 leads are talking at the end, and he says to her, "To Arthur, you're the one that stays. So, like, to me, you were the one that left. To Arthur, you're the one that stays."
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know, man. I was a mess at the end of this
Yeah,
movie.
exactly. Me too.
Like, and then the final shot is her collapsing into an emotional, and I'm like, yeah, girl, same, like
Yeah.
He's right there waiting to embrace her after all that. He's so
Yeah.
accommodating,
Oh.
right? Like,
it's so
of
beautiful.
course I'm going to let you see him. Yeah, this is your childhood sweetheart, he says. That scene where they're in bed together, that extended conversation, is one of the best
So
scenes as
good.
well. Yeah.
I mean, what was the other scene? Well, yeah, the trial scene. So this is a good counterpoint to Anatomy of a Fall's epic scene of the year, because the 6-minute scene in bed between Greta Lee and John
Megara. Yeah.
Megara. I mean, written in performance. I mean that really should be the scene of the year, not The Anatomy of a Fall. Tragedy
Well,
and
they're
heartbreak,
polar opposite, right? They're
yeah,
good to
because
pair
it's a
together.
marriage. It's a true marriage scene,
Right.
and and it makes me weep every time. You want to speak the language of my dreams.
Mm.
Like just this movie is beautiful, guys. Like it's unabashedly, undeniably beautiful and moving, and I don't know. It's just it's in. I almost forgot because I saw it, I guess, earlier in the year, that when I returned to it, I'm just like, how can this not be number one? Like this is just, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a stunning
Yeah.
movie. The discourse around it has been really weird because it came out early in the year
Yeah.
and it kind of fell off the radar in terms of the
Sundance.
Oscars and stuff. But Greta Lee is a revelation in this movie. She's
Yeah.
unreal, and I think the fact that she's not in the discussion is a
Nuts,
crime.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, it did get a Best Picture nom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did.
And
And
best
screenplay.
It
And
just ran out of
screenplay.
steam. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
ran out
Yeah,
of
it
steam.
did. Well,
Which is-
we did it justice here, guys. We did it justice. Top one, top two, no film topped us, the four of us collectively, and we are the be all end all of the opinion on film. So and why shouldn't we, since we are hosted here today by our esteemed critic Furman on film. So
That's right.
these have been
Yes.
the best films of 2023. Furman, do you want to sign us off here now?
I'll just say, hey,
Yeah.
if you want to hear more about a lot of these films, revisit them. They're on the channel. So check out Nick's wonderful reviews of most of
Yeah,
these films you've
seriously.
covered. So I appreciate your work, man.
You can take it
Good
from me,
job.
guys. I've seen at least 15 movies this year.
And 15 more are on your TV right now.
Right now. Yeah,
Uh-huh. Hey,
I'm gonna watch them all.
so for all you guys, my friends, I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film. Stay firm, my friends.